History is filled with questions that remain unanswered. From lost explorers to strange artifacts and mysterious events, the past has left behind puzzles that no one has fully solved. In this video, we will uncover 70 of the most fascinating unsolved historical mystery stories that continue to spark curiosity, wonder, and imagination. Settle in, relax, and let these timeless mysteries guide you into a calm journey through the unknown. 1. The lost colony of Roanoke. In the late 16th century, an English settlement was established on Roanoke Island, located off the coast of present-day North Carolina. This colony, founded in 1587 under the leadership of John White, was meant to be England's first permanent foothold in the New World. When White returned to England for supplies, he expected to be gone only a short while. However, a naval conflict with Spain delayed his return for 3 years. When he finally made it back in 1590, the colony was deserted. More than 100 settlers had vanished without leaving a clear trace of what had happened to them. The only clue was a single word carved into a wooden post: Croatoan. This word pointed to a nearby island where the Croatoan tribe lived, but no evidence of the settlers was ever found there. The fate of the colonists remains a mystery. Some historians suggest they may have integrated with local tribes, while others believe disease, starvation, or hostile attacks could have ended their lives. There is also speculation that they attempted to move inland, but without records or archaeological confirmation, no theory has been proven. The legend of the lost colony has fascinated researchers and storytellers for centuries, becoming one of America's oldest unsolved historical mysteries. To this day, the quiet forests and shores of Roanoke Island hold the weight of unanswered questions, and the fate of those settlers drifts like a whisper through history, unresolved and deeply haunting. 2. The Voynich manuscript. Among the most puzzling artifacts in the history of written works is the Voynich manuscript. This book, dating to the early 15th century, is filled with strange illustrations of unknown plants, peculiar astronomical diagrams, and text written in an indecipherable script. Despite decades of study by historians, linguists, and even modern cryptographers, the language of the manuscript remains untranslatable. The parchment has been carbon dated to the 1400s, but no one knows who wrote it or why. Theories about the manuscript's purpose range from it being a medical guide to a book of alchemy or even an elaborate hoax. The detailed plant drawings do not correspond to any known species, leaving some to wonder whether they depict real plants that have since disappeared or imagined ones meant to symbolize hidden knowledge. The astronomical charts add another layer of intrigue, suggesting it may contain coded cosmological or astrological wisdom. Even with advanced computing tools, the structure of the script resists decoding. Some scholars have speculated it could be an invented language with no true meaning, while others insist the patterns point to genuine linguistic construction. The Voynich manuscript is housed today at Yale University's Beinecke Library, where it continues to invite curiosity from around the world. Each attempt to solve it only deepens the enigma, as if the book itself were meant to guard its secrets. The mystery lies not only in what it says, but in why it was created in the first place. It remains one of the most captivating puzzles of human history, a silent text that resists all understanding, holding its secrets close within its fragile, centuries-old pages. 3. The identity of Jack the Ripper. In the fog-shrouded streets of London in 1888, a series of brutal murders terrified the population and left investigators grasping at shadows. The killer, who came to be known as Jack the Ripper, targeted women in the Whitechapel district, leaving behind scenes of shocking violence. Letters claiming to be from the murderer were sent to newspapers, some signed with the now infamous name. Despite intense police work and widespread public panic, the killer's identity was never uncovered. Over time, countless suspects have been proposed, ranging from local butchers and doctors to members of the aristocracy. Some even suggested it was a conspiracy that involved political figures of the time. Modern forensic techniques, such as DNA analysis, have been applied to artifacts believed to be linked to the murders, but the results have been inconclusive or controversial. What is clear is that Jack the Ripper's crimes changed the course of criminal investigation, spurring advancements in profiling and forensic science. The fascination with this mystery endures because the case blends horror with uncertainty. The streets of Whitechapel, once lit only by gas lamps, became the stage for one of history's most chilling unsolved mysteries. Each new theory offers a glimpse into possible truths, yet none can close the case. The name Jack the Ripper has transcended history, becoming both a symbol of fear and an unsolvable puzzle. To this day, the true identity of the killer remains hidden behind the mists of Victorian London, a dark shadow forever haunting the annals of crime and mystery. 4. The disappearance of Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart was one of the most celebrated aviators of the 20th century. Known for her courage, determination, and achievements in a field dominated by men. In 1937, she set out on her most ambitious challenge yet, to circumnavigate the globe along the equator. Accompanied by her navigator, Fred Noonan, she departed in her Lockheed Electra aircraft. After crossing most of the world successfully, they faced the most perilous stretch, flying from Papua New Guinea to Howland Island, a tiny speck in the Pacific Ocean. On July 2nd, radio transmissions from Earhart grew increasingly desperate as she struggled to locate the island. Then, her voice fell silent. The aircraft vanished, and despite an immediate and extensive search by the United States Navy and Coast Guard, no trace of Amelia or Fred was found. The disappearance gave rise to decades of speculation. Some believed the plane ran out of fuel and crashed into the Pacific, sinking to depths too great to be discovered. Others suggest they might have reached an alternate island, such as Nikomaroro, where possible artifacts have fueled theories of survival and eventual death in isolation. Still, more imaginative accounts involve capture by hostile forces or even elaborate government conspiracies. The mystery endures because Amelia Earhart was not only a pioneering aviator, but also a symbol of hope and possibility. Her vanishing represents more than a missing plane. It is the loss of a trailblazer whose fate remains uncertain. Amelia's disappearance continues to inspire explorers, researchers, and storytellers who pursue the answer with renewed technologies such as sonar scanning and underwater robotics. Each expedition offers fragments of possibility but never certainty. Her story remains suspended between triumph and tragedy, one of history's most enduring mysteries, hovering in the skies she once dared to conquer. 5. The city of Atlantis. The legend of Atlantis originates from the writings of the Greek philosopher Plato, who described it over 2,000 years ago as a powerful and advanced island civilization. According to Plato, Atlantis lay beyond the Pillars of Hercules, known today as the Strait of Gibraltar, and was a land of extraordinary wealth, technology, and influence. Yet, in a single catastrophic event, the island was said to have sunk beneath the ocean waves, vanishing forever. The account has been debated ever since. Was it allegory, a symbolic tale about hubris and the fall of nations, or did it describe a real place lost to time? Countless theories attempt to locate Atlantis. Some place it in the Mediterranean, linking it to the volcanic destruction of Thera, modern-day Santorini. Others suggest it might lie in the Caribbean, Antarctica, or even under the sands of the Sahara. Archaeologists, geologists, and adventurers have all searched for evidence, but none have produced definitive proof. The absence of physical remains leaves the question tantalizingly open, allowing imagination to flourish. What makes Atlantis so compelling is not just the possibility of an ancient lost civilization, but the story's ability to reflect humanity's fascination with greatness and its fragility. If Atlantis did exist, it may represent an early civilization advanced for its time, erased by nature's fury. If it was purely myth, then its endurance speaks to the power of storytelling. To this day, the city of Atlantis captures imaginations as a symbol of mystery beneath the waves, forever luring seekers of truth into the depths of legend. 6. The Phaistos disc discovered in 1908 on the island of Crete. The Phaistos disc is one of archaeology's most enigmatic finds. The disc, made of fired clay, is inscribed on both sides with a spiral of stamped symbols. These symbols, arranged in a careful sequence, are unlike any known writing system. Despite over a century of research, scholars have not been able to translate or even definitively identify the language or purpose of the disc. It remains one of the earliest examples of movable type stamping, yet its meaning is locked away. Theories about the disc's purpose range from a hymn or prayer to a legal document, a calendar, or even a board game. Some suggest it might be a ritual artifact, while others think it was a tool for teaching. Its uniqueness deepens the mystery, as no other artifact with the same script has ever been found. Without comparative material, decipherment is nearly impossible. The disc seems to stand alone, a puzzle that resists every attempt to unlock its voice. The Phaistos disc continues to inspire fascination, because it represents both progress and limitation. It shows that ancient civilizations experimented with recording knowledge in innovative ways. But it also reminds us how easily meaning can be lost across centuries. Visitors to the Heraklion Archaeological Museum in Crete can see the disc today, its spiraling symbols drawing the eye inward, as though leading the observer into the unknown. Silent and unresolved, the Phaistos disc remains a reminder that history holds secrets we may never fully grasp. A small object carrying a vast enigma across the ages. 7. The fate of the princes in the tower. In the year 1483, England was shaken by a story that has never been fully resolved. Edward V, a 12-year-old boy, and his younger brother Richard, Duke of York, were placed in the Tower of London by their uncle, Richard, Duke of Gloucester. At first it was explained as a precaution before Edward's coronation, yet the coronation never came. Instead, their uncle declared himself King Richard III, and the two young princes were never seen again. The disappearance of the boys became one of England's darkest and most haunting mysteries. Rumors spread quickly. Some believed they were quietly murdered to secure Richard's claim to the throne, while others suggested they were smuggled away for safety, their true fate hidden by loyalists. Centuries later, bones discovered beneath the tower were thought to belong to the boys, but without modern forensic certainty, no definitive conclusion has been reached. Historians remain divided, some pointing the finger at Richard III, others at rival claimants who had just as much to gain from the princes' deaths. The mystery continues to stir debate because it embodies questions of power, legitimacy, and betrayal in a turbulent time. The fate of the princes lingers in the shadow of the tower itself, a symbol of innocence lost to ambition and the relentless struggles of monarchy. 8. The Wow signal. On a quiet night in 1977, an astronomer named Jerry Emin was scanning the skies with a radio telescope in Ohio when something extraordinary appeared. A powerful radio signal, lasting 72 seconds, came from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius. The signal was so unusual that Emin circled it on the printout and wrote the now famous word, "Wow." Beside it, the mystery lies in the fact that the signal appeared once and never repeated, despite years of follow-up observation. Scientists have offered various explanations. Some think it could have been interference from Earth, a reflected signal bouncing back from satellites, or a natural cosmic phenomenon. Yet none of these theories fully fit the data. The narrow-band frequency of the signal resembled what researchers expected from a deliberate transmission, leading many to wonder if it was a brief message from an intelligent extraterrestrial source. The lack of repetition makes it impossible to confirm, leaving the Wow signal as a tantalizing fragment of possibility. To this day, the event continues to inspire fascination. It captures humanity's longing to know if we are alone in the universe. The Wow signal stands as both a scientific puzzle and a symbol of cosmic mystery, a brief whisper across the stars that has never been explained. 9. The Mary Celeste ship. In 1872, a ship named the Mary Celeste was discovered adrift in the Atlantic Ocean, seemingly abandoned by its crew. The vessel was in good condition, carrying its cargo of alcohol intact, and there were no signs of struggle or violence. The crew's personal belongings, navigational tools, and even food supplies remained on board, yet the captain, his family, and the sailors were gone without a trace. The lifeboat was missing, but why they would have left a seaworthy ship remains one of the most enduring mysteries of maritime history. Theories range from sudden storms to pirate attacks, though neither fits the evidence well. Some speculate that fumes from the alcohol cargo may have caused panic, prompting the crew to abandon ship prematurely. Others propose more elaborate ideas, including sea monsters or paranormal events. None have ever been proven. The Mary Celeste was eventually towed to port, but its eerie emptiness cast a shadow over its legacy. What makes the mystery so compelling is not only the unanswered question of what happened to the crew, but also the haunting image of a perfectly sound ship drifting silently across the waves. The Mary Celeste became a symbol of the sea's secrets, a reminder that even in an age of exploration, nature and fate still held mysteries beyond our grasp. Its story has inspired books, plays, and films, keeping alive the strange puzzle of a ship that sailed on without her people. 10. The Copper Scroll treasure. Among the Dead Sea Scrolls discovered in the caves near Qumran in 1952, one stood apart from the rest. Unlike the fragile parchments and papyrus scrolls written on traditional materials, This one was engraved on copper sheets, known as the Copper Scroll. It contained a list of what appeared to be hidden treasures. Unlike the other scrolls, which dealt with religious writings, this one catalogued over 60 locations where gold, silver, and other riches were supposedly buried. The descriptions included detailed measurements and landmarks, yet despite decades of searching, none of these treasures have ever been found. Scholars debate whether the scroll was an actual inventory or an imaginative creation. Some argue it could have belonged to the Second Temple in Jerusalem, hidden away during times of war to keep it from being looted. Others suggest it may have been a record of wealth belonging to a religious sect, or even a symbolic text meant to represent spiritual treasure rather than material riches. Archaeologists who attempted to match the descriptions with real-world locations found inconsistencies that made it difficult to pinpoint any exact sites. Today, the Copper Scroll rests in the Jordan Museum in Amman. Its carefully inscribed letters still shine faintly against the metal, as if waiting for someone to finally uncover the truth. The idea of great wealth buried beneath the earth has inspired countless adventurers and dreamers, but the scroll has kept its secret well. Whether it is fact, fiction, or a mixture of both, the Copper Scroll remains one of the most intriguing unsolved mysteries, a tantalizing whisper from the ancient world that continues to resist resolution. 11. The Tunguska Event. On the morning of June 30, 1908, in a remote region of Siberia near the Tunguska River, a massive explosion flattened over 2,000 square kilometers of forest. The force was so powerful that it was estimated to be equivalent to 15 megatons of TNT, making it the largest impact event in recorded history. Witnesses described seeing a fiery object streaking across the sky before a shockwave knocked people off their feet hundreds of kilometers away. Yet, despite the devastation, no impact crater was ever found. Most scientists believe the Tunguska event was caused by the airburst of a comet or asteroid entering Earth's atmosphere. The heat and pressure would have caused it to explode before reaching the ground, explaining the lack of a crater. However, other theories have emerged over the years. Some propose that it was the result of volcanic gas or even a black hole passing through the Earth. Others, leaning toward the extraordinary, suggest extraterrestrial involvement or experimental energy phenomena. Expeditions to the site in the decades following the explosion revealed millions of trees lying in a radial pattern, all pointing away from the blast center. The ground itself bore scars, but still no clear evidence of a meteorite was ever recovered. Even today, more than a century later, the Tunguska event remains partly unexplained. While the scientific consensus leans toward a celestial object exploding in the atmosphere, the absence of definitive proof ensures the mystery endures, a cosmic riddle carved into the wild forests of Siberia. 12. The Shroud of Turin. The Shroud of Turin is one of the most debated religious artifacts in history. This linen cloth, measuring over 4 meters in length, bears the faint image of a man who appears to have been crucified. Many believe it to be the burial shroud of Jesus Christ, while skeptics argue that it is a medieval forgery. The cloth first appeared in historical records during the 14th century in France, but believers maintain that its origins are far older, stretching back to the 1st century. The image on the shroud is particularly mysterious. It is not painted, nor does it resemble traditional forms of art. Scientific studies have struggled to explain how the image was formed, with some suggesting it was caused by a burst of radiant energy or contact with the body itself. Radiocarbon dating tests conducted in 1988 suggested the fabric dated to the Middle Ages, between 1260 and 1390. However, critics argue that the samples tested may have been from later repairs, making the results unreliable. The shroud is kept in the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist in Turin, Italy, and is rarely displayed to the public. For many, it remains a symbol of faith and mystery, bridging the line between science and belief. Whether authentic or not, the Shroud of Turin has inspired centuries of devotion, debate, and fascination. Its enigmatic image continues to spark questions about history, faith, and the possibility of miracles, leaving it one of the most enduring mysteries of the religious world. 13. The disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa. Jimmy Hoffa, the powerful labor union leader, vanished without a trace on July 30, 1975, near Detroit, Michigan. Hoffa was last seen outside a suburban restaurant, where he was reportedly planning to meet 2 known figures connected to organized crime. When he did not return home, A search was launched that quickly escalated into one of the most famous missing person cases in American history. Despite extensive investigations by the FBI, his body was never found, and his disappearance remains unsolved nearly 50 years later. Numerous theories attempt to explain what happened. Some suggest Hoffa was killed by the mafia to prevent him from regaining control of the Teamsters Union. Others believe he may have been buried under construction projects, such as the old Giants Stadium in New Jersey, though searches have turned up no evidence. There are even ideas that he was cremated immediately after his death to erase all traces. Each lead investigated by authorities has resulted in dead ends. Adding to the intrigue, Hoffa's disappearance has become a cultural legend, inspiring books, films, and endless speculation. For many, it represents the intersection of labor struggles, political power, and organized crime in mid-20th century America. Though time passes, the question remains, what truly happened to Jimmy Hoffa on that summer afternoon? Until proven evidence is found, his vanishing will remain one of the most enduring mysteries in American history. 14. The Antikythera mechanism. Discovered in 1901 in the remains of a shipwreck off the Greek island of Antikythera. The Antikythera mechanism has often been called the world's first computer. At first glance, it looked like a corroded lump of bronze and wood, but researchers later uncovered an intricate system of gears within it. When reconstructed, the mechanism revealed itself as a complex device used to predict astronomical positions, lunar cycles, and even eclipses with remarkable accuracy. Scholars date its construction to around the 2nd century BCE, making it far more advanced than anything known to exist at that time. The mystery lies in how such advanced engineering was possible in ancient Greece. The precise gearwork suggests knowledge of mathematics and mechanics that should not have reappeared until many centuries later, during the Renaissance. Some theorists suggest the knowledge was lost and rediscovered, while others speculate about unknown schools of ancient science. Despite decades of study using X-ray scans and 3D modeling, not all functions of the device are fully understood. The Antikythera mechanism challenges the timeline of technological progress, raising questions about what other ancient inventions might have been lost to history. Its silent gears remind us that human innovation has always reached beyond the limits of the known, leaving behind mysteries that continue to spark wonder. 15. The Nazca lines across the arid plains of southern Peru stretch enormous geoglyphs, known as the Nazca lines, etched into the desert floor between 500 BCE and 500 CE. These figures depict animals, plants, and geometric shapes, some stretching hundreds of feet across. From the ground, the lines seem like shallow trenches, but from above, they reveal detailed and purposeful designs. This has led to one of the great questions of archaeology. Why were they created? And how were they meant to be viewed? Some scholars argue that the lines served ritual or religious purposes, possibly connected to water worship or astronomical alignments. Others believe they were part of ceremonial pathways used in processions. Still, there are alternative theories, including the idea that they functioned as astronomical calendars or even messages to beings beyond Earth. What deepens the mystery is the sheer scale and precision of the figures, which could only be fully appreciated from high above, though there is no evidence of flight in Nazca culture. Preserved by the dry desert climate, the Nazca lines remain one of the world's most impressive and enigmatic works of ancient engineering. They whisper of a culture whose beliefs and practices are only partially understood, reminding us of how much has been lost to time. To gaze upon them is to be confronted by human creativity and mystery, etched permanently into the earth. 16. The stone spheres of Costa Rica. In the jungles of Costa Rica lie hundreds of nearly perfect stone spheres, some small enough to hold in one's hand, while others weigh several tons. Discovered in the 1930s by workers clearing land for banana plantations, these spheres have since become one of the most enigmatic archaeological mysteries in the Americas. Crafted from granodiorite, a rock not always found near the sites where the spheres rest, the question of how they were made and transported has baffled researchers. Their creation dates back to the culture, which thrived between 500 and 1500 CE, yet no written records or oral traditions explain why these spheres were shaped so precisely. The craftsmanship is remarkable. Many spheres are so smooth and round that they rival modern machining in precision. Scholars have proposed that they may have been carved with simple tools, then polished using sand and other abrasive materials. However, The effort required to make them in such quantities is astounding. Some theories suggest they were symbols of power, representing the sun, the universe, or authority within the society that created them. Others argue that their arrangement at various sites hints at astronomical alignments or territorial markers. When the spheres were first uncovered, many were moved or damaged, and some were even blown apart by treasure hunters who believed they contained gold. Today, the spheres have gained recognition as part of Costa Rica's cultural heritage and are protected as UNESCO World Heritage artifacts, yet their true purpose remains elusive. Were they ceremonial, decorative, or functional in ways we cannot yet grasp? Each possibility adds to their mystery. Standing silently amid the lush greenery, the stone spheres invite us to imagine the forgotten world of the people, whose legacy endures not through words, but through these perfect, timeless orbs that continue to challenge our understanding of ancient craftsmanship and meaning. 17. The Baghdad Battery in 1938, a curious artifact, was unearthed near Baghdad, Iraq, that challenged our understanding of ancient technology. The object, often called the Baghdad Battery, consists of a clay jar containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod. At first glance, it appears unremarkable, but when examined closely, researchers discovered that its structure resembles a simple galvanic cellar primitive battery. If filled with an acidic liquid, such as vinegar or lemon juice, the jar could produce a small electrical current. This revelation raised an astonishing question. Did ancient peoples harness electricity thousands of years before modern science? The jar is dated to around 200 BCE, during the Parthian period. No clear records explain its use, leaving scholars to speculate. Some believe it was used for electroplating, a process of depositing a thin layer of metal onto another object, which would account for the fine metallic artifacts discovered in the region. Others suggest it could have been used for medical purposes, possibly as a means of electrotherapy. A more skeptical view is that the jar had no electrical function at all and was simply a storage container, its resemblance to a battery being coincidental. The controversy continues because there is no definitive proof of its purpose. Experiments with replicas have shown that it can indeed produce a modest voltage, enough to shock the skin or coat small objects with metal. However, no supporting evidence, such as written instructions or large-scale use, has ever been found. This leaves the Baghdad Battery as one of the most debated artifacts in archaeology. Whether it represents a forgotten branch of ancient science or a misunderstood relic, its presence challenges our assumptions about technological progress. It reminds us that history may still hold secrets about civilizations that experimented with forces we often consider modern, leaving us with a tantalizing question. What else might they have known that remains hidden beneath the sands of time? 18. The Olmec colossal heads towering across the ancient lands of Mexico are the colossal stone heads of the Olmec civilization, some weighing as much as 40 tons and standing over 10 feet tall. These massive sculptures, carved from single blocks of volcanic basalt, date back more than 3,000 years, to between 1200 and 400 BCE. Each head is distinct, with unique facial features, expressions, and headgear, suggesting they may represent individual rulers or revered figures. Their scale, craftsmanship, and mystery make them one of the most iconic symbols of Mesoamerican archaeology. The creation of these heads is a puzzle in itself. The basalt used was often quarried from sites dozens of miles away, and without wheels or beasts of burden, the Olmec must have transported these enormous stones using sheer manpower, wooden rollers, and rafts along rivers. Once in place, the stones were meticulously carved with stone tools, showing incredible skill and dedication. The effort reflects not only technical ability, but also the social and political power of the leaders who commissioned them. The purpose of the colossal heads remains debated. Many scholars believe they were portraits of powerful rulers, designed to immortalize their authority and presence. Their distinctive helmets might link them to ritual ball games or military power. Others suggest they had religious or ceremonial significance, perhaps serving as guardians of sacred spaces. Intriguingly, some fringe theories have speculated about links to lost civilizations or even extraterrestrial contact, though no credible evidence supports these claims. What endures is the sense of awe these sculptures inspire. The Olmec, often considered the mother culture of Mesoamerica, laid the foundations for later civilizations like the Maya and Aztec. Their colossal heads stand as silent witnesses to a world long gone. embodying mystery, artistry, and power. They remind us that even in the distant past, people sought to leave lasting legacies carved in stone, messages from antiquity that we are still striving to fully understand today. 19. The Bimini Road. Off the coast of Bimini Island, in the Bahamas, lies a peculiar underwater formation known as the Bimini Road. Discovered in 1968, it consists of a series of large rectangular limestone blocks, stretching for nearly half a mile on the ocean floor. At first glance, the blocks appear unnaturally aligned, as though they had been laid out deliberately by human hands to form a road, wall, or even a part of an ancient harbor. This unusual arrangement immediately sparked debate and fascination, as some believe it could be evidence of a long-lost civilization, perhaps even the mythical Atlantis described by Plato. Skeptics argue that the Bimini Road is nothing more than a natural geological formation, created by the fracturing and erosion of limestone over thousands of years. They point to similar formations found in other parts of the world as examples of how nature can mimic human engineering. However, supporters of the man-made theory highlight the road-like appearance, the uniformity of the blocks, and the suggestion that some stones may have been intentionally shaped or placed. Additionally, some divers claim that smaller stone structures exist nearby, strengthening the idea of a sunken settlement. Adding to the mystery, psychic Edgar Cayce predicted in the 1930s that remnants of Atlantis would be discovered in the Bimini area during the late 1960s. The discovery of the Bimini Road seemed to align with his prophecy, fueling further speculation. Yet, despite extensive exploration, no definitive artifacts, tools, or cultural evidence have been found to confirm that the structure was crafted by humans. Today, the Bimini Road remains a subject of intrigue, balancing between geology and legend. For divers and explorers, it represents both an underwater marvel and a symbol of how history, myth, and natural wonder can blur into one enduring mystery beneath the waves. 20. The Great Zimbabwe Ruins. In the heart of modern day Zimbabwe stands one of the most impressive and enigmatic stone ruins in Africa, known as the Great Zimbabwe. Built between the 11th and 15th centuries, this ancient city was once the center of a thriving and powerful kingdom that controlled much of the region's trade in gold and ivory. The ruins stretch across nearly 800 hectares and feature massive stone walls, some rising over 30 feet high, constructed without mortar. The craftsmanship and sheer scale of these structures have left historians and archaeologists in awe. The mystery of Great Zimbabwe lies not in its existence, but in the questions surrounding its builders, its purpose, and the eventual decline of the city. Early European colonists, unable to believe that Africans could have built such an advanced city, speculated that it was created by outsiders, perhaps the Phoenicians, or even ancient people from the Middle East. This misconception persisted for decades, fueled by racial prejudice. Modern research, however, has proven beyond doubt that Great Zimbabwe was built by the ancestors of the Shona people, showcasing their skill, organization, and cultural sophistication. Yet, mysteries remain. The exact purpose of some of the structures, such as the Great Enclosure with its massive walls and conical tower, is still debated. Some believe it was a royal palace, while others suggest it had religious or ceremonial significance. The decline of the city in the 15th century is also shrouded in uncertainty. Possible explanations include environmental depletion, shifts in trade routes, or political instability. Without written records, the full story remains elusive. Great Zimbabwe stands today as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a symbol of African achievement, and a reminder of the continent's rich and often misunderstood history. It continues to inspire questions about how ancient societies rose, thrived, and eventually faded, leaving behind monuments that still puzzle and captivate the modern world. 21. The Georgia Guidestones. In a quiet field in Elbert County, Georgia, stood a monument unlike any other in the United States. The Georgia Guidestones, erected in 1980. The massive granite structure featured 4 upright slabs topped by a capstone, with inscriptions carved in 8 modern languages and 4 ancient scripts. The messages inscribed on the stones outlined a set of guidelines for humanity, calling for population control, harmony with nature, and the establishment of a new age of reason. The monument quickly became shrouded in mystery due to the anonymity of its creators and the controversial nature of its messages. The Guidestones were commissioned by a man under the pseudonym R.C. Christian, who approached a local granite company with precise instructions and significant funding. The true identity of this individual, and whether he represented a group or worked alone, has never been uncovered. The inscriptions included statements such as maintaining humanity under 500 million people, uniting humanity with a common language, and balancing personal rights with social duties. These ideas, while seemingly aimed at promoting order, sparked debates, conspiracy theories, and even accusations of ties to secret societies like the Freemasons or the Illuminati. For some, the monument was a beacon of wisdom, offering a framework for humanity's survival in the face of global threats like war, overpopulation, and environmental collapse. For others, it symbolized elitist control, a dystopian blueprint for world domination. The secrecy surrounding its commissioning only deepened suspicions. Adding to its intrigue, the guidestones functioned as an astronomical calendar, with the stones aligned to track solar and lunar events. This lent the monument an additional layer of sophistication, blending science, philosophy, and mystery. Unfortunately, in 2022, the structure was heavily damaged by an explosion and later demolished for safety reasons. Yet, even in absence, the Georgia Guidestones continue to spark discussion and curiosity, standing as one of America's most unusual and unsolved modern mysteries. 22. The disappearance of the Library of Alexandria. The Library of Alexandria is often regarded as the most famous lost collection of knowledge in human history. Established in the ancient Egyptian city of Alexandria, it was believed to house hundreds of thousands of scrolls covering science, philosophy, literature, medicine, and history. The dream of its founders was to create a universal library that would gather the wisdom of all civilizations in one place. Ships docking in Alexandria were said to have their scrolls confiscated, copied, and stored in the library. However, despite its legendary status, very little is known about its exact size, structure, or fate. Several theories exist about the destruction of the library. Some historians claim it was accidentally burned during Julius Caesar's siege of Alexandria in 48 BCE. Others suggest that later Roman emperors or even early Christians may have contributed to its decline, either through negligence, religious zeal, or intentional destruction. Another possibility is that the library was not destroyed in one single catastrophic event, but rather diminished gradually over centuries of neglect and political turmoil. The lack of definitive evidence has left scholars debating its fate for over 2 millennia. The loss of the Library of Alexandria has become symbolic of humanity's fragile relationship with knowledge. If the records it contained had survived, our understanding of ancient civilizations, scientific discoveries, and forgotten histories might be far more advanced today. The mystery lies not only in how it was destroyed, but also in what treasures of thought were lost forever. Was there knowledge of advanced mathematics, maps of unknown lands, or cures to diseases that vanished into the ashes? The unanswered questions ensure that the Library of Alexandria endures as one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the ancient world. 23. The Ulfberth Viking swords. Among the many artifacts left behind by the Vikings, the Ulfberth swords stand out as some of the most extraordinary weapons of the medieval era. Dating from around the 9th to the 11th centuries, these swords were discovered across Europe, marked with the mysterious inscription, +VLFBRH, +T. The craftsmanship of these blades far exceeded typical medieval weaponry. Unlike the brittle iron of most swords at the time, Ulfberth swords were forged from high-quality, crucible steel, a metal with far fewer impurities, allowing the blades to be stronger, sharper, and more flexible. This level of technology would not appear again in Europe until the Industrial Revolution, nearly 800 years later. How the Vikings obtained or produced this advanced steel remains an enigma. Some scholars suggest that the technology may have come from the Middle East or Asia, where crucible steel was known as wootz steel. If so, it indicates that the Vikings had access to vast trade networks stretching far beyond what was once believed. Others argue that the inscription may have been a form of branding, with different smiths imitating the name without fully understanding the steelmaking process, which could explain why not all swords bearing the name had the same quality. The mystery deepens when considering the cultural significance of the swords. To own an Ulfberth sword was a mark of prestige and power. The rarity and superiority of the blades meant that only the wealthiest or most skilled warriors could wield them. Archaeological studies have revealed that these swords were buried with their owners, signifying their immense value. Yet, despite centuries of study, the exact methods used to forge these legendary blades remain unknown. Were the Vikings master metallurgists, ahead of their time, or beneficiaries of trade routes reaching into distant lands? The Ulfberth swords stand as relics of both technological brilliance and historical mystery, shimmering symbols of unanswered questions in the age of the Vikings. 24. The Göbekli Tepe temples. Deep in southeastern Turkey lies Göbekli Tepe, an archaeological site that has rewritten humanity's understanding of early civilization. Dating back to around 9600 BCE, Göbekli Tepe predates Stonehenge by nearly 6,000 years and the pyramids of Egypt by about 7,000 years. The site consists of massive circular enclosures with T-shaped stone pillars, some reaching up to 20 feet in height and weighing several tons. Many of the pillars are decorated with intricate carvings of animals such as lions, snakes, and birds. What makes the site so mysterious is that it was constructed during a period when humanity was thought to consist only of nomadic hunting, not organized societies capable of such monumental architecture. The purpose of Göbekli Tepe remains one of its greatest enigmas. Some scholars believe it served as a religious or ceremonial center, possibly the world's first temple. Others suggest it was a gathering place for different groups of people, fostering the beginnings of organized community life. The sophistication of its construction implies advanced planning, cooperation, and knowledge of stoneworking far earlier than previously believed. Another puzzle is why the site was deliberately buried around 8000 BCE, preserving it for future discovery. The reasons behind this act are still debated. Was it a ritual closure, protection from enemies, or a mysterious cultural shift? Göbekli Tepe challenges the conventional timeline of human progress. Instead of agriculture leading to civilization, this site suggests that religious or social structures may have come first, pushing people to settle and eventually farm. Each new excavation uncovers more questions than answers, from the identities of its builders to the meaning of its symbolic carvings. As archaeologists continue to dig, Göbekli Tepe stands as a silent monument to humanity's forgotten past, an unsolved mystery carved in stone thousands of years before written history began. 25. The disappearance of Flight MH370 on March 8, 2014. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 vanished from radar screens while en route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. The aircraft, a Boeing 777 carrying 239 people, was expected to complete its journey in less than 7 hours. But within just 40 minutes of takeoff, communication with air traffic control was lost. Initial assumptions suggested a technical failure, but as the hours turned into days, it became evident that this was no ordinary disappearance. Radar data showed that the plane had deviated from its planned route, turning west across the Malay Peninsula before disappearing over the Indian Ocean. Despite one of the largest search efforts in aviation history, no definitive crash site has ever been found. Over the years, fragments of the plane have washed ashore on distant beaches in Madagascar and Mozambique, offering tragic confirmation that the aircraft did indeed crash into the ocean. Yet the exact location and reason remain shrouded in mystery. Theories range from hijacking, pilot suicide, and mechanical failure, to more elaborate claims of government cover-ups and military involvement. The official investigation concluded that the plane likely ended in the southern Indian Ocean, but could not determine the precise cause. The mystery of Flight MH370 resonates deeply because it occurred in the modern era, in a world where aircraft are tracked with sophisticated technology. That such a large and advanced plane could simply vanish raises unsettling questions about the limits of our surveillance systems and the vulnerability of human travel. For the families of those aboard, the lack of closure is devastating, as they are left without concrete answers about the fate of their loved ones. This event remains one of aviation's greatest unsolved mysteries, a haunting reminder of how, even in an age of satellites and global connectivity, the vastness of our world can still swallow evidence whole. 26. The Moai statues of Easter Island. On a remote island in the southeastern Pacific, more than 800 colossal statues stand as silent sentinels, carved centuries ago by the Rapa Nui people. Known as Moai, these statues, some weighing up to 80 tons and standing over 30 feet tall, were carved from volcanic rock and transported across the island to their final resting places. Each moai represents an ancestral figure, believed to hold spiritual significance, watching over the people and embodying the mana or sacred power of their lineage. The mystery lies not only in the craftsmanship of the statues, but also in how they were moved across vast distances without modern tools. Theories suggest that the Rapa Nui used wooden sleds, ropes, and manpower, while some argue they may have employed advanced techniques of balance, allowing the statues to be walked into place. The immense labor required raises questions about how a relatively small island population achieved such feats. The collapse of Rapa Nui society, often attributed to deforestation, overpopulation, or external conflict, only deepens the enigma. By the time European explorers arrived in the 18th century, the culture that had erected these towering figures was in decline. Modern research has revealed that the moai were not just heads, as often depicted in popular culture, but full-bodied figures varied over time. Many also wore large stone hats called pukao, which added to the complexity of their construction and transport. Despite archaeological advances, the precise methods remain uncertain. The moai continued to inspire awe, not only for their scale and artistry, but for the mystery of human ingenuity they embody. Easter Island remains a symbol of both cultural achievement and caution, as its story reflects how isolation, ambition, and environmental strain can shape the destiny of a civilization. 27. The Lost City of Z. In the dense jungles of the Amazon, tales persist of a hidden civilization of immense wealth and sophistication. Referred to as the Lost City of Z, the legend was popularized by British explorer Percy Fawcett in the early 20th century. Fawcett believed the Amazon was not an uninhabitable wilderness, but the cradle of an advanced society that predated European arrival. His conviction grew after discovering artifacts and hearing indigenous legends of great stone cities concealed within the rainforest. In 1925, Fawcett embarked on an expedition with his son and a companion to find Z, but the group vanished without a trace, sparking one of the most enduring mysteries of exploration. Countless expeditions followed in hopes of uncovering Fawcett's fate or the city itself, but many met with failure or tragedy. Some explorers were lost to disease, starvation, or hostile encounters with the rainforest. While no definitive city of Z has been found, discoveries of ancient geoglyphs, road networks, and evidence of large settlements suggest that advanced pre-Columbian societies did exist in the Amazon. These findings lend some credibility to Fawcett's theories, even if his city remains elusive. The allure of the lost city of Z lies not only in the possibility of a great hidden metropolis, but also in the mystery surrounding Fawcett himself. Did he find something remarkable only to perish before sharing it? Or did the jungle claim him and erase all traces of his mission? The ambiguity fuels endless speculation. Books and films have immortalized Fawcett's quest, keeping alive the dream of discovering lost civilizations in the depths of the Amazon. To this day, the lost city of Z stands as a symbol of mankind's relentless desire to uncover the unknown, a legend suspended between myth and reality. 28. The Beale Ciphers. The Beale Ciphers are one of the most intriguing cryptographic mysteries in American history. The story begins in the early 19th century, when a man named Thomas J. Beale allegedly discovered a vast treasure of gold, silver, and jewels during an expedition in the American West. According to the tale, Beale buried this treasure in Bedford County, Virginia, and left behind 3 coded messages that supposedly reveal the treasure's location, its contents, and the names of those who would inherit it. The ciphers were entrusted to an innkeeper in a locked box, with instructions that they should be opened if Beale did not return within 10 years. He never returned. Of the 3 ciphers, only one has been definitively solved, and it was decoded using the United States Declaration of Independence as a key. This particular cipher described the contents of the treasure, claiming it consisted of thousands of pounds of gold and silver. The other 2 ciphers, which are thought to contain the treasure's exact location and the names of the heirs, remain unsolved. Over the centuries, countless treasure hunters and cryptographers have tried to crack them, but none have succeeded in producing a verifiable solution. Skeptics argue that the entire story might be a hoax created in the 1880s, when the first pamphlet describing the ciphers was published. Some suggest it was designed to sell copies of the pamphlet itself, or to stir public fascination with hidden fortunes. Others believe the treasure genuinely exists, but remains undiscovered due to the difficulty of the unsolved ciphers. Regardless of the truth, the Beale ciphers continue to inspire both professional codebreakers and amateur treasure seekers. The possibility that a fortune may still lie buried in Virginia adds a layer of enduring allure to the mystery, making it one of history's most captivating unsolved puzzles. 29. The disappearance of the Indus Valley Civilization. The Indus Valley Civilization, which flourished around 2600 to 1900 BCE in what is now Pakistan and northwest India, was one of the world's earliest urban cultures, known for its advanced city planning, standardized weights and measures, and complex drainage systems. This civilization rivaled those of Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt. Cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro reveal a society that valued organization, cleanliness, and trade. Yet, despite its achievements, the Indus Valley Civilization eventually declined and vanished, leaving behind one of history's greatest enigmas. Historians and archaeologists have long debated the causes of this collapse. Some argue that climate change played a crucial role, with evidence of shifting river patterns and prolonged droughts reducing agricultural output. Others suggest invasions or internal conflicts may have destabilized the society. Another theory proposes that gradual environmental degradation, such as deforestation or overuse of resources, weakened the civilization over time. The absence of clear evidence of warfare in many sites, however, complicates the theory of violent conquest. Adding to the mystery is the fact that the script of the Indus Valley people remains undeciphered without the ability to read their records. Scholars cannot fully understand their social structure, religion, or reasons for decline. This lack of written clarity keeps the mystery open-ended. Were they displaced by natural disasters, or did they slowly migrate and merge into other cultures, leaving their once great cities behind? The disappearance of the Indus Valley Civilization highlights the fragility of human societies, no matter how advanced. The unanswered questions surrounding their fate remind us of the impermanence of civilizations and the challenges of interpreting the silent ruins of the past. To this day, the abandoned streets and carefully laid bricks of Mohenjo-daro stand as quiet witnesses to a culture whose final chapter has never been written. 30. The Rongorongo script of Easter Island, known for its iconic Moai statues, holds another profound mystery. The enigmatic Rongorongo script, carved into wooden tablets using glyphs and symbols. Rongorongo is believed to represent a written language discovered in the 19th century. The script has fascinated linguists, historians, and archaeologists ever since. What makes it especially compelling is that it may be one of the few independent inventions of writing in human history, separate from known origins like Mesopotamia, Egypt, or China. The script consists of intricate symbols arranged in rows, often written in a style called reverse boustrophedon, where the text alternates direction with each line. Unfortunately, much of the knowledge of the script was lost when European contact brought devastating diseases and colonization to the island. Missionaries also destroyed many tablets, considering them pagan artifacts, leaving only a small number of authentic examples behind. As a result, the surviving pieces are too limited to allow a full decipherment. Scholars have attempted to analyze patterns within the glyphs, but without a bilingual text like the Rosetta Stone for Egyptian hieroglyphs, progress has been slow. Some researchers believe Rongorongo may encode genealogies, religious chants, or records of significant events. Others argue it might not be a full writing system at all, but rather a proto-writing or symbolic representation of ideas. The mystery of Rongorongo goes beyond the script itself. It also raises questions about how isolated societies create and sustain complex systems of communication. If it truly represents an independent invention of writing, it would place the Rapa Nui people among the few cultures in history to have achieved such a milestone. Yet, with so few tablets left and no living memory of how to read them, the true meaning of Rongorongo may never be unlocked. Like the silent Moai statues, the script stands as a reminder of Easter Island's lost knowledge, whispering secrets across time that remain beyond our reach. 31. The mystery of Stonehenge on the windswept plains of Salisbury. Stonehenge rises from the grass like a ring of patient giants. The monument is a circle of sarsen uprights and lintels joined with neat mortise and tenon joints, and a smaller inner ring of bluestones brought from distant Welsh hills. Archaeologists believe construction unfolded in stages beginning around 3000 BCE and continuing for many centuries. Yet the reasons that guided those careful builders remain partly hidden. Moving stones that weigh as much as 25 tons, without wheels or iron tools, required planning, community coordination, and an understanding of ropes, levers, and timber sledges. The journey of the bluestones, probably by river and sea, suggests a network of routes and a shared vision strong enough to inspire such effort. Stonehenge is aligned with the rising sun at the summer solstice and the setting sun at the winter solstice, a design that hints at an observant relationship with the sky. People gathered here to watch light thread between stones, to mark the turn of the seasons, and perhaps to anchor the calendar that guided farming and ritual. Excavations have revealed cremation, burials, and traces of feasting nearby, implying that the landscape was a ceremonial center where life and death were contemplated together. Long barrows, curses, monuments, and the timber circle at Durrington Walls form a constellation of sites that seem to speak to one another across the chalk downs. Explanations have multiplied. Some see Stonehenge as a temple to the sun, others as a healing sanctuary, its rare bluestones believed to hold curative power. There are theories of ancestral veneration, processional avenues, and sound experiments that explore how the stone's shape echoes in rhythm. Even after centuries of study, no single interpretation settles the matter. Instead, the stones invite a gentle acceptance that human meaning can be layered and shifting, carried by stories that were rarely written down. What is certain is the feeling that the monument still gives to visitors. Each stone has a softened edge, worn by weather and by time, yet the arrangement remains deliberate and calm. When the wind moves across the plain and the shadows grow long, the site becomes a slow clock of light and silence. Standing within the circle, one senses how carefully the builders balanced earth and sky, weight and gap, passage and pause. Stonehenge endures as a lesson in patience and collective intention, an unfinished sentence in the language of prehistory. It reminds us that mystery can be restful, that not every question requires an answer, and that sometimes the enduring gift of a monument is the quiet it keeps. Modern research continues to widen the picture. Isotope studies of remains suggest that some people traveled far to attend gatherings here, while laser scanning and aerial surveys map traces under the turf. Engineers model how stones could have been raised with wooden frames and rising soil ramps. Even with such tools, the circle resists certainty. It watches the horizon as it always has, patient, steady, unknowable. 32. The disappearance of the Ark of the Covenant. Few sacred objects in human storytelling have carried a greater sense of awe than the Ark of the Covenant. According to the Hebrew Bible, the Ark was a wooden chest covered in gold, built to hold the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments. It was adorned with 2 cherubim, and it symbolized a meeting place between the divine and the people of Israel. The Ark moved with the community through the wilderness, crossed rivers, accompanied armies, and was eventually installed in the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem. Descriptions emphasize both holiness and danger. To touch it without authority was to risk death. To approach it carelessly was to invite calamity. Then the Ark vanished. The historical trail thins during centuries of conflict and upheaval. One tradition places the loss during the Babylonian conquest in 586 BCE, when the first temple was destroyed and many treasures were carried away. Yet surviving lists of seized items do not mention the Ark. Another story tells that priests hid it before the siege, concealing it within secret chambers under the Temple Mount. A third and enduring claim holds that the Ark was moved along ancient trade routes to the Horn of Africa, and that it rests in Axum, Ethiopia, guarded in a chapel by a single custodian. Pilgrims make the journey, but the reliquary remains closed to outside verification. The mystery invites history and faith to share the same quiet space. Archaeologists map tunnels, study inscriptions, and compare chronicles. Theologians trace meanings through liturgy and symbol. Nothing resolves the central question. Was the Ark destroyed, dismantled for its materials, or hidden so well that the hiding place became a new kind of tomb? If it survives, does its power lie in physical presence, or in the story that is gathered around it, like layers of gold leaf? The disappearance of the Ark also frames the wider history of sacred objects. Communities move, empires rise and fall, and the things that anchor identity often travel with their keepers or vanish in turmoil. Loss deepens. A missing relic becomes a focus for longing, a place where memory gathers when documents are silent. So the Ark endures as a symbol of covenant, lore, and wandering, even when the chest itself cannot be pointed to on any map. Modern searches continue with respectful caution. Ground surveys, textual studies, and comparative archaeology offer fragments rather than proof. Meanwhile, the Temple Mount remains a sensitive site, layered with living faiths and living history, and responsible scholarship proceeds slowly. Perhaps the Ark will never be found. Perhaps it was never meant to be anything but promise and presence carried in story. In that possibility there is a gentle comfort. The unknown can still be meaningful. The Ark of the Covenant remains a steady light in the imagination, guiding thought, much as a lamp guides steps in the dark. Whether resting in earth, river silt, or memory alone, it continues to ask questions about duty, belonging, and what we choose to protect. 33. The Green Children of Woolpit. In the 12th century, during the reign of King Stephen, or possibly King Henry II, villagers in the small English village of Woolpit encountered something extraordinary. According to chroniclers Ralph of Coggeshall and William of Newburgh, 2 children, a boy and a girl, were discovered near a wolf pit in Suffolk. What startled the villagers was not merely their sudden appearance, but their green-tinted skin, their unfamiliar clothing, and their inability to speak English. They spoke a strange, unknown language and seemed disoriented by their certainties. The villagers took them in, and over time, the children slowly adapted. Initially, they refused all food except raw beans, which they ate voraciously. Eventually, they adjusted to a normal diet, and as they did so, the green hue of their skin began to fade. Tragically, the boy died not long after their discovery, but the girl survived, learned English, and was later baptized. She recounted a story that left scholars and storytellers puzzled for centuries. According to her, she and her brother had come from a land with no sunlight, a place of perpetual twilight known as the land of St. Martin. They had been tending to their father's livestock when they came across a mysterious tunnel or cave. Following its path, they emerged into the bright daylight of Woolpit. Overwhelmed by the strangeness of the world they found themselves in, the tale of the Green Children has sparked countless theories. Some believe it to be folklore, perhaps an allegory about outsiders or cultural integration. Others propose medical explanations, such as chlorosis, a form of iron deficiency anemia that can cause a greenish skin tone. Yet others suggest the story hints at an otherworldly origin, interpreting the Land of Twilight as a description of a subterranean or even extraterrestrial world. Some have even linked the legend to tales of parallel dimensions, where entire civilizations might exist just beyond the veil of human perception. The presence of a tunnel or cave in the story strengthens the imagery of passage between 2 realms, an idea that resonates deeply with myths of hidden worlds across cultures. Historians continue to debate whether the account reflects a distorted memory of displaced Flemish immigrants who wore unusual clothes and spoke a different language, or whether it preserves something more extraordinary. Whatever its origin, the mystery of the Green Children of Woolpit endures, embodying the sense of wonder and fear sparked by encounters with the unknown. Even today, their story lingers in folklore, novels, and speculative theories, a timeless reminder of humanity's fascination with the strange and unexplained. 34. The Black Dahlia Murder. In January 1947, Los Angeles awoke to one of the most infamous and brutal unsolved crimes in American history. The body of a young woman, later identified as 22-year-old Elizabeth Short, was discovered in a vacant lot in the Limerick Park neighborhood. Her corpse had been grotesquely mutilated. The body was severed at the waist, drained of blood, and posed with eerie precision. The horrific nature of the crime immediately captured headlines, and the press dubbed her the Black Dahlia, inspired by her preference for dark clothing and the recently released film The Blue Dahlia. The investigation into Elizabeth Short's death quickly became a media frenzy. Police interviewed hundreds of suspects, and theories ranged from the involvement of jealous lovers to powerful Hollywood figures. Despite an exhaustive inquiry, no one was ever charged. The brutality of the crime, combined with the young woman's glamorous image, fueled sensational speculation. Some theorized that her murder was the work of a sadistic doctor, due to the precision of the cuts, while others suspected underworld connections or a serial killer who may have struck again in other unsolved cases. Elizabeth Short herself became a figure of fascination. Originally from Massachusetts, she had come to California in search of an acting career. Her life, marked by ambition, hardship, and fleeting connections in the Los Angeles social scene, was picked apart by the media, often in exploitative or inaccurate ways. Her murder highlighted not only the brutality of the crime, but also the darker side of fame, ambition, and the city of dreams. Over the decades, numerous suspects have been suggested. One of the most notable was George Hotel, a Los Angeles physician whose own son later accused him of being the killer, citing disturbing evidence and circumstantial links. Still, definitive proof has never been established. Others believe the Black Dahlia case may have been part of a string of ritualistic or copycat killings, though no solid connections have been proven. The LAPD files remain open, but much evidence has been lost to time, corruption, and sensationalism. The Black Dahlia murder has since become a haunting symbol of Los Angeles' noir, the intersection of glamour, violence, and mystery. It has inspired countless books, films, and theories, embedding itself into American true crime lore. More than 70 years later, the case still grips public imagination, not only because of its gruesome details, but because it represents the darker undercurrent of Hollywood's golden age, a shadowy puzzle that continues to resist resolution. 35. The Oak Island Money Pit. The Oak Island Money Pit is one of the most enduring and captivating mysteries in North American history. Located off the coast of Nova Scotia, Oak Island became famous in the late 18th century when local teenagers discovered a curious depression in the ground. When they began digging, they encountered wooden platforms placed at regular intervals of about 10 feet. This unusual discovery sparked speculation that the site concealed a buried treasure of immense value. As word spread, generations of treasure hunters, engineers, and historians became obsessed with uncovering the pit's secrets. Over the centuries, numerous excavations have been launched, often backed by considerable sums of money. Yet, every attempt has been thwarted by flooding tunnels, collapses, and unexplained obstacles. Some believe the flooding system was an intentional booby trap created to protect whatever lies at the bottom. Others suggest natural geology has been misunderstood as deliberate engineering. Despite modern technology, no one has successfully reached the supposed treasure chamber. Theories about what lies beneath are as varied as they are imaginative. Some claim the pit holds pirate treasure, possibly belonging to the notorious Captain Kidd. Others suggest it might contain artifacts from the Knights Templar, the lost works of Shakespeare, or even the Holy Grail. Skeptics argue that the Money Pit is nothing more than a natural sinkhole that has been misinterpreted and mythologized. However, the consistent discovery of man-made structures, such as wooden beams, stone markers, and tools, has kept curiosity alive. The Oak Island mystery has become a cultural phenomenon, inspiring countless books, documentaries, and even a long-running television series. The legend thrives because it blends adventure, history, and the promise of hidden riches. Even without a definitive answer, the Money Pit continues to attract dreamers and explorers. Each dig renews hope that the next spade of earth will solve the enigma. The allure of the mystery also reflects something deeper about human nature, the irresistible pull of secrets hidden underground, waiting to be uncovered. Whether the treasure is real or imagined, Oak Island has become more than just a site. It is a symbol of perseverance, obsession, and humanity's eternal quest for discovery. For now, the island remains silent, its secrets locked away, daring the next generation to try again. 36. The Mothman sightings. The Mothman phenomenon began in the small town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. In the mid-1960s, eyewitnesses reported seeing a large, winged creature with glowing red eyes and a humanoid shape. Descriptions varied, but most agreed it was over 6 feet tall, with an intimidating presence and the ability to fly at great speeds. The first widely publicized sighting occurred in November 1966. When two couples claimed a strange creature followed their car near an abandoned munitions plant. Their story made headlines, and soon, others came forward with similar accounts. Reports of the Mothman quickly multiplied. Some believed the creature was a supernatural omen, while others thought it was an undiscovered species of bird or a misidentified animal. Sightings peaked in 1967, just before the tragic collapse of the Silver Bridge, which killed 46 people. Many locals came to associate the Mothman with the disaster, interpreting its presence as a warning of impending catastrophe. This link cemented the creature's reputation as a harbinger of doom. Over time, the Mothman legend grew beyond West Virginia. Researchers, folklorists, and paranormal enthusiasts have debated its origins. Some explanations point to sandhill cranes or barred owls, whose size and glowing eyes in headlights could match descriptions. Others see the Mothman as a manifestation of collective anxiety during a time of social upheaval. Cryptozoologists, however, remain open to the idea of an undiscovered species lurking in remote corners of Appalachia. The story has inspired books, documentaries, and even a Hollywood film, ensuring the Mothman's place in popular culture. Point Pleasant now hosts an annual Mothman Festival, celebrating both the mystery and the community's unique history. Statues, museums, and local legends keep the fascination alive, turning fear into folklore. The creature has transcended its original sightings to become a symbol of unexplained phenomena and humanity's fascination with the unknown. Whether the Mothman was a misidentified animal, a supernatural warning, or a figment of imagination, the mystery endures. It reflects humanity's need to find meaning in strange events and to weave extraordinary tales from fleeting glimpses. Decades later, the glowing eyes of the Mothman still peer from the shadows of legend, a chilling reminder that some mysteries refuse to fade, leaving behind questions with no definitive answer. 37. The Tungsten Cube of Wolf's Egg. The Wolf's Egg Iron, sometimes also called the Wolf's Egg Cube, is one of the most puzzling artifacts ever unearthed in Europe. Discovered in 1885 by miners near the Austrian town of Wolfsegg, this strange metallic object has baffled historians, archaeologists, and scientists for over a century. The cube-like object was found embedded in a block of lignite, a type of brown coal that dates back approximately 20 million years. The presence of an apparently manufactured object within such ancient geological layers raises enormous questions about human history, technology, and what might have existed long before the civilizations we know. The artifact itself is made of iron with a remarkable purity and shows evidence of being deliberately shaped. It has flat, machiny-looking surfaces, sharp edges, and precise angles that suggest human workmanship. However, according to mainstream archaeology, humans capable of producing refined metal objects did not exist anywhere close to the time period suggested by the coal. This paradox has led some to classify the Wolf's Egg Cube as an UPArt, an out-of-place artifact, something that defies conventional timelines. Over the years, multiple theories have emerged about its origin. Some argue it was part of ancient machinery from a lost civilization, possibly one that predated all recorded history. Others suggest it could have been debris from meteorites, though its structure does not align with known meteorite compositions. A more skeptical approach suggests that the cube may have been accidentally dropped by miners and became lodged in coal through some geological process. Yet, even this explanation does not fully account for the object's unusual design and the absence of tool marks consistent with modern equipment. The Wolf's Egg Cube was studied by several institutions in Europe, including museums in Salzburg and Vienna. Analyzers confirmed its metallic purity, but could not explain how such an object ended up where it was found. Today, it resides in the Himmelthaus Museum in Wittlabrück, Austria, where it continues to attract curiosity and speculation from around the world. Whether it is a fragment of forgotten technology, a natural anomaly that mimics human craftsmanship, or something else entirely, the Wolf's Egg Cube remains one of history's enduring enigmas. Its silent, geometric presence challenges the linear story of human development and invites us to consider the possibility of chapters in our past that remain unwritten. 38. The Dancing Plague of 1518. In the summer of 1518, the city of Strasbourg, then part of the Holy Roman Empire, was gripped by one of the strangest phenomena ever recorded, the Dancing Plague. It began when a woman named Frau Trophia stepped into the streets and began to dance uncontrollably. She danced for hours, showing no sign of fatigue or willingness to stop. Within days, dozens of others had joined her, also moving frantically, as if compelled by some invisible force. The bizarre spectacle quickly drew crowds, and within a month, it is said that as many as 400 people were caught up in the strange epidemic of dance. Historical accounts describe the dancers as being unable to rest. Many collapsed from exhaustion, some reportedly died from strokes or heart attacks, yet others continued as if driven by an unstoppable compulsion. Local authorities, unsure of how to deal with the crisis, believed that the afflicted might recover if they were allowed to dance the mania out of their systems. Musicians were even hired, and a stage was erected to provide space for the sufferers. Instead of relieving the problem, this only encouraged more people to join in, spreading the strange phenomenon further. Explanations for the dancing plague have varied widely. Some historians suggest it was a case of mass hysteria, brought on by stress, famine, and disease that plagued the region at the time. Others propose it could have been caused by ergot poisoning, a hallucinogenic mold that grows on rye and can produce convulsions and hallucinations. Still, others argue for religious or cultural causes, pointing to the intense spiritual atmosphere of the era, where outbreaks of extreme behavior were often attributed to divine punishment or saintly influence. Whatever the cause, the dancing plague of 1518 eventually faded after several weeks, leaving behind confusion and fear. Records show that victims were taken to shrines dedicated to Saint Vitus, the patron saint of dancers, in hopes of divine intervention. Slowly, the epidemic diminished, but the mystery of why it started and how it spread has never been solved. To this day, it remains a haunting example of how human psychology, environment, and belief can combine to produce phenomena that defy explanation. The sight of hundreds of people dancing uncontrollably in the streets, in joyless and painful motion, lingers in history as one of its most unsettling and surreal mysteries. 39. The Taos hum. In the quiet desert town of Taos, New Mexico, residents and visitors alike have reported hearing a mysterious low-frequency hum that defies explanation. Known simply as the Taos hum, this strange auditory phenomenon has been recorded since the early 1990s, although some locals insist they noticed it much earlier. The hum is typically described as a persistent, droning sound, similar to the distant rumble of a diesel engine idling or low, vibrating machinery. What makes the Taos hum so unusual is that it is only heard by a small percentage of the population, usually estimated at between 2 to 10%. This selective perception makes it difficult to study, as not everyone in the same location can hear it at the same time. Scientists and researchers have attempted to investigate the Taos hum using sensitive sound equipment, seismographs, and radio frequency monitors. However, no consistent source of the sound has ever been identified. Theories range from geological activity beneath the Earth's crust to man-made sources such as electrical grids, distant industrial machinery, or even military communication systems. Others suggest that the phenomenon may not be external at all, but rather a result of human perception, linked to tinnitus or heightened auditory sensitivity in certain individuals. Yet, many who hear the hum insist it is external and real, often describing how it disrupts sleep, concentration, and daily life. The mystery of the Taos hum has grown into something larger than a local oddity, as similar hums have been reported worldwide in places like Bristol in the United Kingdom, Kokomo in Indiana, and Auckland in New Zealand. Each location presents the same puzzle. Only a small group of people can hear it, and no definitive source has ever been confirmed. While skeptics believe the hum is psychological or physiological in nature, others suspect there may be undiscovered acoustic or electromagnetic phenomena at play. Whatever its cause, the Taos hum remains an unsolved modern mystery, an invisible vibration echoing through the desert air, felt by a few and dismissed by many. Its persistence ensures it will continue to spark curiosity, scientific inquiry, and folklore, as the low rumble continues to disturb the silence of Taos. For those who hear it, the hum is more than a curiosity, it is a constant presence that has turned their everyday environment into an enigma. 40. The crystal skulls. Among the most fascinating and controversial artifacts linked to mystery and speculation are the so-called crystal skulls. These carved quartz skulls, often life-sized and highly detailed, first appeared in the public eye in the late 19th century, with some claim to have been discovered in ancient Mesoamerican ruins. The most famous of these is the Mitchell Hedges skull, allegedly found in the 1920s in Belize by Anna Mitchell Hedges, though the story of its discovery remains hotly contested. Advocates argue that the skulls possess mysterious properties, ranging from healing powers and psychic energy to serving as keys to ancient wisdom left by lost civilizations. Skeptics, however, argue that most crystal skulls were carved in the 19th or 20th centuries, likely in Europe, using modern tools. Studies conducted by institutions such as the British Museum and the Smithsonian have concluded that several well-known skulls show microscopic tool marks consistent with rotary wheels, a technology unavailable to pre-Columbian cultures. Despite this, believers hold firm to the idea that at least some skulls may be authentic relics of ancient civilizations, possibly connected to the Maya or Aztec peoples. or even tied to more fantastical origins, such as Atlantis or extraterrestrial visitors. The allure of the crystal skulls lies not only in their craftsmanship, but also in the legends surrounding them. Some traditions claim that there are 13 original skulls scattered across the world, and that when reunited, they will reveal vital knowledge for the survival of humanity. This myth has been fueled by books, documentaries, and even films, embedding the skulls into popular culture as icons of mystery and supernatural intrigue. Scientists remain unconvinced, pointing out that quartz crystal is notoriously difficult to date, making it impossible to determine the exact age of the skulls. Regardless of their true origin, the crystal skulls continue to inspire awe and wonder. They blur the lines between archaeology, myth, and imagination, serving as a reminder that human history is as much about the stories we tell as the artifacts we uncover. Whether crafted by ancient hands or modern artisans, the skulls carry a haunting beauty that invites endless speculation. For some, they are proof of lost knowledge and hidden powers. For others, they are simply exquisite works of art. Either way, the mystery of the crystal skulls endures, shimmering in the translucent stone, a riddle carved into quartz that time itself has yet to solve. 41. The death of Alexander the Great. The death of Alexander the Great, one of history's most legendary military leaders, remains one of the most enduring unsolved mysteries of the ancient world. Born in 356 BCE in Macedonia, Alexander rose to power at a young age and went on to create one of the largest empires in history, stretching from Greece to Egypt and deep into Asia. His sudden death in 323 BCE, at the age of just 32, shocked the ancient world and has fascinated historians for centuries. The circumstances surrounding his demise are shrouded in uncertainty, as the historical records are both incomplete and often contradictory. According to most accounts, Alexander fell ill after a banquet in Babylon. Over the course of several days, his condition worsened until he lost the ability to speak. Eventually, he died, leaving his generals and empire without a clear successor. Ancient sources such as Plutarch and Arrian describe a lingering sickness, but they do not agree on its exact nature. This ambiguity has led to centuries of speculation. Some historians believe that Alexander may have died from natural causes such as malaria, typhoid fever, or West Nile virus, all of which were present in the region at the time. Others have pointed to excessive drinking, battle wounds that never fully healed, or complications from existing health problems. However, there are also theories suggesting foul play. Some contemporaries and later writers claimed that Alexander may have been poisoned, given the political intrigue of his court, and the fact that his sudden death left a massive power vacuum. This theory cannot be dismissed outright. His generals, known as the Diadochi, immediately began vying for control of his empire after his passing, and poisoning would have been a plausible means of hastening such an outcome. Yet, most modern scholars argue that the length of his illness makes deliberate poisoning less likely, as most known poisons of the time would have acted much more quickly. Another layer of mystery surrounds the fate of Alexander's body. Historical accounts state that his corpse did not decay for days after his death, leading some to speculate about divine intervention or, in modern times, about the possibility that he was not truly dead when he was declared so. Some medical experts have suggested he may have suffered from Guillain-Barré syndrome, a condition that can cause paralysis while leaving a person mentally alert, creating the appearance of death. If true, it would mean that Alexander might have been buried alive in a state of near-death paralysis. The final resting place of Alexander adds yet another element to the enigma. Initially, his body was intended to be taken back to Macedonia, but it was hijacked and eventually interred in Alexandria, Egypt. The exact location of his tomb has been lost to history, despite centuries of searching. From ancient Roman emperors to modern archaeologists, countless figures have sought the burial site of Alexander, but it has never been conclusively identified. In the end, the mystery of Alexander the Great's death persists, because it lies at the intersection of legend, medicine, and political intrigue. Was he felled by disease, betrayed by those closest to him, or the victim of a medical condition misunderstood in his time? With no definitive evidence and so many unanswered questions, the death of Alexander the Great remains one of history's greatest enigmas, a fittingly mysterious end for a man whose life reshaped the known world. 42. The curse of King Tut's tomb in 1922. The discovery of the tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamun by British archaeologist Howard Carter was hailed as one of the greatest archaeological finds in history. Hidden beneath the sands of Egypt's Valley of the Kings, the nearly intact tomb of the Boy King dazzled the world with its treasures, golden artifacts, and the iconic death mask that has since become a symbol of ancient Egypt. Yet alongside the marvel of discovery, whispers of a deadly curse began to circulate, giving rise to one of the most chilling mysteries of the 20th century, the curse of King Tut's tomb. The legend of the curse stems from a series of strange deaths and misfortunes that befell some of those connected to the opening of the tomb. The most famous case is that of Lord Carnarvon, the wealthy English aristocrat who financed the excavation. Only a few months after the tomb was opened, Carnarvon died suddenly from blood poisoning caused by an infected mosquito bite. His death was widely reported in sensational newspapers of the time, which linked it to an inscription supposedly found in the tomb that warned of death to those who disturbed the pharaoh's rest. Although no such inscription has ever been verified, the story captured the public imagination and sparked a frenzy of fear and fascination. Other deaths added fuel to the curse narrative. Some members of the excavation team and individuals tangentially connected to the discovery reportedly died under unusual or premature circumstances in the years that followed. These included George J. Gould, an American financier who visited the tomb and soon after died of pneumonia, and Sir Archibald Douglas Reed, who took X-rays of the mummy and died mysteriously soon afterward. These incidents, coupled with the dramatic nature of Carnarvon's demise, reinforced the idea of a supernatural curse, exacting revenge on those who disturbed Tutankhamun's eternal rest. Skeptics, however, have long argued that the curse is more myth than reality. Many of the individuals directly involved in the excavation, including Howard Carter himself, lived long lives well after the tomb's opening. Carter died in 1939 at the age of 64, nearly 2 decades after his historic discovery, seemingly untouched by any curse. Furthermore, medical experts point out that tombs, sealed for millennia, may contain harmful bacteria, molds, or toxins that could have posed health risks to those who entered them without proper precautions. This natural explanation may account for at least some of the illnesses and deaths attributed to the curse. Still, the legend persists because it taps into deeper cultural fears and fascinations. Ancient Egypt has always been associated with mystery, magic, and the supernatural. The idea of a powerful curse guarding the treasures of a long-dead pharaoh plays into timeless human anxieties about meddling with forces beyond our understanding. Even today, documentaries, books, and films continue to explore the supposed curse, keeping the tale alive in popular imagination. In truth, the curse of King Tut's tomb may never be proven or disproven conclusively. Whether it was coincidence, medical misfortune, or something more otherworldly, the story continues to resonate because it blends history with myth. The tomb of Tutankhamun remains a window into the grandeur and enigma of ancient Egypt, and the curse, real or imagined, remains an enduring reminder of the mysteries that still cling to the sands of time. 43. The Natsino tragedy in the spring of 1933. One of the most haunting episodes in Soviet history unfolded on a remote island in Siberia, known today as the Natsino tragedy, or sometimes called Cannibal Island. It was the result of a brutal social experiment carried out under Joseph Stalin's regime. The tragedy began when thousands of people, many of them arrested arbitrarily as part of purges or accused of being undesirables, were forcibly deported to a small, swampy island on the Obi River near the village of Natsino. These individuals, numbering around 6,000, were told they were being resettled to cultivate new farmland. However, the reality awaiting them was far more grim. When the deportees arrived at Natsino Island in May of 1933, they discovered it was completely uninhabitable. The island was a barren patch of land with no shelter, no tools, no crops, and very little food. Most of those sent there had no agricultural experience, and many were elderly, sick, or too weak to labor. Guards brought them small amounts of flour but no ovens, pots, or utensils with which to cook it. Starving, many tried mixing the flour with river water, leading to fatal cases of dysentery. Hunger quickly became overwhelming, and conditions descended into chaos. Violence broke out as stronger groups preyed upon the weak. People fought over scraps of food, clothing, and shelter. Then, in one of the darkest turns of human desperation, cases of cannibalism began to spread across the island. Within just a few weeks, thousands had perished. The survivors were eventually relocated to other labor camps, but by then the damage was irreversible. Official Soviet records acknowledged the disaster, though many details were concealed for decades. Testimonies from witnesses, later revealed in the 1980s and 1990s, exposed the full horror of what had occurred. The Nazino tragedy stands today as a chilling reminder of how callous political systems can reduce human lives to expendable resources. More than just a story of famine and death, it is a testament to how suffering can arise, not from natural disaster, but from deliberate cruelty and administrative indifference. The island remains uninhabited, and it's silent. Swampy grounds carry the memory of one of the darkest and least known atrocities of the Soviet era. 44. The Mystery Hill of New Hampshire, in the forests of Salem, New Hampshire. There lies an enigmatic site popularly referred to as America's Stonehenge, officially called Mystery Hill. This archaeological site is composed of stone chambers, walls, standing monoliths, and carefully arranged structures spread across nearly 30 acres of land. While it has long fascinated locals and scholars alike, the origins and purpose of this site remain deeply contested, making it one of North America's enduring historical mysteries. The central feature of Mystery Hill is a series of interconnected stone chambers built using massive slabs. Some chambers are roofed with enormous lintel stones, while others connect through narrow passageways that suggest intentional design. Around the chambers are stone walls and upright slabs, some of which appear to align with astronomical events such as solstices and equinoxes. These alignments have led some researchers to suggest that the site may have been used as an ancient observatory or calendar system. Supporters of this theory argue that Mystery Hill demonstrates a level of sophistication and astronomical knowledge unusual for the region. As known prehistoric cultures, the mystery deepens because mainstream archaeology has never reached a consensus about the site's builders. Some believe the complex was constructed by early Native American groups, possibly for ceremonial or astronomical purposes. Others claim the structures bear resemblance to megalithic sites in Europe, proposing that ancient Celtic or Iberian seafarers may have crossed the Atlantic thousands of years before Columbus. Still others argue that much of the site may have been altered in the 18th and 19th centuries by colonial farmers who used the land for quarrying, livestock, and storage. This mix of possible explanations has left Mystery Hill in a haze of uncertainty. Excavations at the site have uncovered artifacts ranging from stone tools to ceramic fragments, but none have provided definitive proof about who built the structures or when. Radiocarbon dating has suggested that some charcoal remnants found in soil layers may be thousands of years old, supporting the argument for ancient origins. Yet skeptics insist that without clear evidence, the site may be far less mysterious than enthusiasts claim. Today, Mystery Hill is open to the public and marketed as America's Stonehenge, a place where visitors can walk through the chambers, view the standing stones, and marvel at the strange design. Whether it was an ancient Native American sacred site, a transatlantic outpost of Old World travelers, or simply the creative handiwork of colonial settlers, the site continues to inspire debate. Mystery Hill remains an enduring puzzler, reminder that the landscapes of even familiar places like New England may hold secrets stretching back far deeper into time than we have yet uncovered. 45. The San Pedro Mountain Mummy. High in the rugged mountains of Wyoming in 1932, two prospectors searching for gold stumbled upon something far stranger than they could have imagined. Inside a small cave, they discovered a tiny, perfectly preserved, mummified figure seated cross-legged on a ledge. This mummy, later known as the San Pedro Mountain Mummy, measured only about 7 inches in height when seated, and its features bore a striking resemblance to that of a fully developed adult human rather than a child. The discovery quickly sparked debate, speculation, and controversy that has never been fully resolved. The mummy was examined by scientists and doctors of the time, who performed X-rays and concluded that the figure had a complete human skeleton, including fully developed teeth. Some believed it was the remains of an infant who had suffered from anencephaly or other developmental disorders, which explained its unusual appearance. Others, however, claimed it was not a malformed infant, but rather a representative of a race of so-called little people, long rumored in Native American folklore. Legends among the Crow and Shoshone tribes spoke of tiny, fierce warriors who lived in the mountains, sometimes described as protectors of sacred lands. To believers in these oral traditions, the San Pedro mummy was physical proof of ancient tales. For a time, the mummy was displayed publicly and studied by various experts. Yet, as with many mysterious artifacts, it eventually vanished from public view, and its final whereabouts remain unknown. Some accounts suggest it was sold to private collectors, while others claim it was stolen. Without the ability to conduct modern DNA testing or radiocarbon dating on the remains, the truth about its origins has been lost. Speculation ranges from scientific explanations, such as congenital deformities or ritualistic burial practices, to more fringe theories about hidden races of tiny humans or even extraterrestrial connections. Regardless of interpretation, the San Pedro mountain mummy occupies a fascinating space where archaeology, folklore, and mystery intersect. Its disappearance has only deepened the intrigue, ensuring that the mummy remains a permanent enigma in American history. Was it an unfortunate child, a legendary little person from indigenous lore, or something else entirely? With the original specimen missing, the world may never know, and the San Pedro mountain mummy continues to linger as one of the strangest unsolved discoveries ever made. 46. The WOW signals source. In August of 1977, a radio telescope at Ohio State University picked up a signal from deep space that has baffled scientists for decades. Known today as the WOW signal, it lasted for 72 seconds and was so unusual that astronomer Jerry Emmons circled it on the computer printout and wrote "WOW" in the margin. The signal appeared to come from the constellation Sagittarius, near the Chi Sagittari star group, and was so strong and structured that it immediately suggested an artificial origin rather than a natural cosmic phenomenon. To this day, it remains one of the most compelling pieces of evidence, considered by some as a possible indication of extraterrestrial intelligence. The WOW signal was narrowband, meaning it occupied only a very specific frequency range. Unlike the broad signals typically produced by natural cosmic sources, what made it even more curious was its closeness to the hydrogen line, a frequency considered by many scientists to be a universal channel for interstellar communication, since hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. Yet despite follow-up scans in the days, weeks, and years afterward, the signal was never detected again, making it a unique, one-time anomaly. Explanations have ranged from terrestrial interference, such as stray signals bouncing off satellites, to natural sources like comets, emitting hydrogen clouds. In 2017, a team of researchers proposed that a comet moving through the area at the time might have been responsible, but this theory remains disputed. Many astronomers point out that the intensity and clarity of the WOW signal do not match any known cometary emissions. Others continue to hold that it could have been an intentional broadcast from an intelligent source, although why it was never repeated remains a mystery. The WOW signal continues to inspire scientists, science fiction writers, and enthusiasts alike. It represents both the promise and frustration of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, a fleeting, powerful hint of communication that never repeated itself. Today, SETI programs use far more advanced equipment, but none have captured anything quite like it. The WOW signal's origin, whether natural, artificial, or something still beyond our understanding, remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the cosmos, a tantalizing whisper from the stars that has kept humanity wondering for nearly half a century. 47. The disappearance of the Franklin expedition. In 1845, Sir John Franklin led an ambitious expedition from England with two ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, to chart and navigate the last uncharted sections of the Northwest Passage in the Arctic. The expedition set out with 129 men, state-of-the-art ships reinforced for icy waters, and provisions thought to last several years. Yet, the Franklin expedition ended in one of history's greatest maritime tragedies and mysteries. Neither Franklin nor his men returned, and their fate remained unknown for decades, fueling speculation, myth, and sorrow among those back home. The last recorded European sighting of the ships was in Baffin Bay, and from there silence stretched into years. As months passed without word, concern grew in Britain, prompting one of the largest and most costly search efforts of the century. Over time, scattered evidence began to surface, weathered notes left behind, abandoned equipment frozen into the ice, and skeletal remains discovered on desolate Arctic shores. Inuit oral histories told of starving men dragging heavy boats across the ice, of ships trapped and slowly crushed, and even hinted at acts of cannibalism during their desperate struggle to survive. Later forensic studies of recovered remains confirmed signs of severe malnutrition, tuberculosis, lead poisoning from poorly sodaed canned food, and possibly scurvy, of which weakened the crew and contributed to their downfall. Franklin himself is believed to have died in 1847, leaving his men leaderless in one of the harshest environments on Earth. For nearly 170 years, the exact resting places of the ships were a mystery. Numerous expeditions searched fruitlessly, adding new legends each time, until 2014 when the wreck of HMS Erebus was finally discovered in shallow waters near King William Island. 2 years later, HMS Terror was found remarkably preserved on the seabed, its timbers still intact, as though waiting to tell its story. These discoveries brought some closure, but many questions endure. Why did the ships end up where they did? How much of the Inuit testimony long dismissed by Europeans was accurate all along? And why were fatal mistakes made, despite the expedition being one of the best prepared of its time? The Franklin expedition's fate highlights the brutal unpredictability of Arctic exploration and stands as a stark reminder of the limits of human ambition when faced with nature's extremes. It is a tale of courage and hubris, endurance and collapse, where every clue uncovered from the ice deepens rather than resolves the mystery. Today, the story remains both a tragedy and a puzzle, combining heroism, loss, and the haunting silence of the polar ice that still guards many of its secrets. 48. The Ora Linda Book. The Ora Linda Book is one of the most controversial manuscripts in European history, alternately described as a priceless ancient text or an elaborate forgery. First appearing in the 19th century, the book claimed to be a chronicle of a lost northern European civilization stretching back thousands of years. Written in an unfamiliar script resembling Old Frisian, it contains stories of gods, floods, migrations, and a powerful matriarchal society. For a time, it was hailed as a discovery that could rewrite history, but soon, suspicion and doubt surrounded it. The book was allegedly copied from earlier manuscripts by Cornelis over de Linden, a Dutchman who claimed it had been in his family for generations. It told of a people called the Frey, who lived in a society governed by priestesses and based their culture on laws given by a goddess named Freya. According to the text, this civilization experienced great upheavals, including natural disasters that destroyed much of their land. Some interpretations even connected the Ora Linda Book to the myth of Atlantis, claiming it provided proof of a forgotten European cradle of civilization. For decades, the manuscript fascinated historians, occultists, and nationalist thinkers. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, it was even used by some groups to support theories of Aryan superiority, twisting its contents for political ends. However, linguistic experts soon began to doubt its authenticity. The language seemed inconsistent with genuine Old Frisian, and certain stylistic features suggested it was written in the modern era. By the early 20th century, the scholarly consensus leaned strongly toward it being a hoax, possibly created as satire or to deceive gullible antiquarians. Yet, despite this, the debate has never fully disappeared. Some modern researchers argue that even if the Ora Linda Book is not genuinely ancient, it still reflects cultural anxieties, folklore, and political movements of the time it was produced. Others wonder if parts of it may preserve fragments of authentic oral traditions, woven into a fabricated framework. What remains certain is that the manuscript blurs the boundary between myth and history. Its mysterious origin and bizarre content continue to spark debates about human credulity, the hunger for lost civilizations, and the way history can be invented or reshaped. Today, the Ora Linda Book is housed in the Frisian Historical and Literary Center in the Netherlands. It is studied not only as a potential fraud, but as a cultural artifact in its own right. Reminder that the desire for grand ancient truths can sometimes create myths that endure for centuries. Whether hoax or hidden history, the Ora Linda Book still captures imaginations, keeping alive the question of how much of the past remains hidden, waiting to be uncovered. 45. The San Pedro Mountain Mummy. High in the rugged mountains of Wyoming in 1932, two prospectors searching for gold stumbled upon something far stranger than they could have imagined. Inside a small cave, they discovered a tiny, perfectly preserved, mummified figure, seated cross-legged on a ledge. This mummy, later known as the San Pedro Mountain mummy, measured only about 7 inches in height when seated, and its features bore a striking resemblance to that of a fully developed adult human rather than a child. The discovery quickly sparked debate, speculation, and controversy that has never been fully resolved. The mummy was examined by scientists and doctors of the time, who performed X-rays and concluded that the figure had a complete human skeleton, including fully developed teeth. Some believed it was the remains of an infant who had suffered from anencephaly or other developmental disorders, which explained its unusual appearance. Others, however, claimed it was not a malformed infant, but rather a representative of a race of so-called little people, long rumored in Native American folklore. Legends among the Crow and Shoshone tribes spoke of tiny, fierce warriors who lived in the mountains, sometimes described as protectors of sacred lands. To believers in these oral traditions, the San Pedro mummy was physical proof of ancient tales. For a time, the mummy was displayed publicly and studied by various experts. Yet, as with many mysterious artifacts, it eventually vanished from public view, and its final whereabouts remain unknown. Some accounts suggest it was sold to private collectors, while others claim it was stolen. Without the ability to conduct modern DNA testing or radiocarbon dating on the remains, the truth about its origins has been lost. Speculation ranges from scientific explanations, such as congenital deformities or ritualistic burial practices, to more fringe theories about hidden races of tiny humans or even extraterrestrial connections. Regardless of interpretation, the San Pedro Mountain mummy occupies a fascinating space where archaeology, folklore, and mystery intersect. Its disappearance has only deepened the intrigue, ensuring that the mummy remains a permanent enigma in American history. Was it an unfortunate child, a legendary little person from indigenous lore, or something else entirely? With the original specimen missing, the world may never know, and the San Pedro Mountain mummy continues to linger as one of the strangest unsolved discoveries ever made. 46. The WOW signals source. In August of 1977, a radio telescope at Ohio State University picked up a signal from deep space that has baffled scientists for decades. Known today as the WOW signal, it lasted for 72 seconds and was so unusual that astronomer Jerry Emmons circled it on the computer printout and wrote "WOW" in the margin. The signal appeared to come from the constellation Sagittarius, near the Chi Sagittarii star group, and was so strong and structured that it immediately suggested an artificial origin rather than a natural cosmic phenomenon. To this day, it remains one of the most compelling pieces of evidence, considered by some as a possible indication of extraterrestrial intelligence. The WOW signal was narrowband, meaning it occupied only a very specific frequency range. Unlike the broad signals typically produced by natural cosmic sources, what made it even more curious was its closeness to the hydrogen line, a frequency considered by many scientists to be a universal channel for interstellar communication, since hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. Yet despite follow-up scans in the days, weeks, and years afterward, the signal was never detected again, making it a unique, one-time anomaly. Explanations have ranged from terrestrial interference, such as stray signals bouncing off satellites, to natural sources like comets, emitting hydrogen clouds. In 2017, a team of researchers proposed that a comet moving through the area at the time might have been responsible, but this theory remains disputed. Many astronomers point out that the intensity and clarity of the WOW signal do not match any known cometary emissions. Others continue to hold that it could have been an intentional broadcast from an intelligent source, although why it was never repeated remains a mystery. The WOW signal continues to inspire scientists, science fiction writers, and enthusiasts alike. It represents both the promise and frustration of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, a fleeting, powerful hint of communication that never repeated itself. Today, SETI programs use far more advanced equipment, but none have captured anything quite like it. The WOW signal's origin, whether natural, artificial, or something still beyond our understanding, remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the cosmos, a tantalizing whisper from the stars that has kept humanity wondering for nearly half a century. 47. The disappearance of the Franklin expedition in 1845. Sir John Franklin led an ambitious expedition from England with 2 ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, to chart and navigate the last uncharted sections of the Northwest Passage in the Arctic. The expedition set out with 129 men, state-of-the-art ships reinforced for icy waters, and provisions thought to last several years. Yet, the Franklin expedition ended in one of history's greatest maritime tragedies and mysteries. Neither Franklin nor his men returned, and their fate remained unknown for decades, fueling speculation, myth, and sorrow among those back home. The last recorded European sighting of the ships was in Baffin Bay, and from there silence stretched into years. As months passed without word, concern grew in Britain, prompting one of the largest and most costly search efforts of the century. Over time, scattered evidence began to surface, weathered notes left behind, abandoned equipment frozen into the ice, and skeletal remains discovered on desolate Arctic shores. Inuit oral histories told of starving men dragging heavy boats across the ice, of ships trapped and slowly crushed, and even hinted at acts of cannibalism during their desperate struggle to survive. Later forensic studies of recovered remains confirmed signs of severe malnutrition, tuberculosis, lead poisoning from poorly sodaed canned food, and possibly scurvy, of which weakened the crew and contributed to their downfall. Franklin himself is believed to have died in 1847, leaving his men leaderless in one of the harshest environments on Earth. For nearly 170 years, the exact resting places of the ships were a mystery. Numerous expeditions searched fruitlessly, adding new legends each time, until 2014 when the wreck of HMS Erebus was finally discovered in shallow waters near King William Island. 2 years later, HMS Terror was found remarkably preserved on the seabed, its timbers still intact, as though waiting to tell its story. These discoveries brought some closure, but many questions endure. Why did the ships end up where they did? How much of the Inuit testimony long dismissed by Europeans was accurate all along? And why were fatal mistakes made, despite the expedition being one of the best prepared of its time? The Franklin expedition's fate highlights the brutal unpredictability of Arctic exploration and stands as a stark reminder of the limits of human ambition when faced with nature's extremes. It is a tale of courage and hubris, endurance and collapse, where every clue uncovered from the ice deepens rather than resolves the mystery. Today, the story remains both a tragedy and a puzzle, combining heroism, loss, and the haunting silence of the polar ice that still guards many of its secrets. 48. The Ora Linda Book. The Ora Linda Book is one of the most controversial manuscripts in European history, alternately described as a priceless ancient text or an elaborate forgery. First appearing in the 19th century, the book claimed to be a chronicle of a lost northern European civilization stretching back thousands of years. Written in an unfamiliar script resembling Old Frisian, it contained stories of gods, floods, migrations, and a powerful matriarchal society. For a time, it was hailed as a discovery that could rewrite history, but soon, suspicion and doubt surrounded it. The book was allegedly copied from earlier manuscripts by Cornelis over de Linden, a Dutchman who claimed it had been in his family for generations. It told of a people called the Frey, who lived in a society governed by priestesses and based their culture on laws given by a goddess named Freya. According to the text, this civilization experienced great upheavals, including natural disasters that destroyed much of their land. Some interpretations even connected the Ora Linda Book to the myth of Atlantis, claiming it provided proof of a forgotten European cradle of civilization. For decades, the manuscript fascinated historians, occultists, and nationalist thinkers. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, it was even used by some groups to support theories of Aryan superiority, twisting its contents for political ends. However, linguistic experts soon began to doubt its authenticity. The language seemed inconsistent with genuine Old Frisian, and certain stylistic features suggested it was written in the modern era. By the early 20th century, the scholarly consensus leaned strongly toward it being a hoax, possibly created as satire or to deceive gullible antiquarians. Yet, despite this, the debate has never fully disappeared. Some modern researchers argue that even if the Ora Linda Book is not genuinely ancient, it still reflects cultural anxieties, folklore, and political movements of the time it was produced. Others wonder if parts of it may preserve fragments of authentic oral traditions, woven into a fabricated framework. What remains certain is that the manuscript blurs the boundary between myth and history. Its mysterious origin and bizarre content continue to spark debates about human credulity, the hunger for lost civilizations, and the way history can be invented or reshaped. Today, the Linde book is housed in the Frisian Historical and Literary Center in the Netherlands. It is studied not only as a potential fraud, but as a cultural artifact in its own right. Reminder that the desire for grand ancient truths can sometimes create myths that endure for centuries. Whether hoax or hidden history, the Linde book still captures imaginations, keeping alive the question of how much of the past remains hidden, waiting to be uncovered. 49. The Dropa stones. Among the many alleged archaeological mysteries of the 20th century, few have provoked as much fascination and skepticism as the story of the Dropa stones. According to accounts that surfaced in the 1960s, these unusual artifacts were supposedly discovered in 1938 by an archaeological expedition led by Chinese professor Chipu Tei in the remote Bayonha Mountains of Tibet. Hidden within caves, the expedition reported finding hundreds of stone discs measuring about 9 inches in diameter with a hole in the center. What made them remarkable, however, were the fine spiral grooves carved into their surfaces, which some researchers claimed contained microscopic hieroglyphic-like inscriptions. The story goes that when these inscriptions were studied, they revealed a startling narrative. Supposedly, they told of a people called the Dropa who came from the stars and crash-landed in the region thousands of years ago. Stranded and unable to return home, the Dropa integrated with local tribes, leaving behind both their legend and these curious artifacts. Over time, the tale was embellished with claims that the stones emitted unusual electromagnetic properties, and even that some had been tested by Russian scientists who confirmed their otherworldly origin. For enthusiasts of ancient astronaut theories, the Dropa stones became a tantalizing piece of supposed evidence for extraterrestrial contact in antiquity. Yet, from the beginning, the story has been riddled with inconsistencies. No physical Dropa stones are known to exist in museums today, and references to Professor Chipu Tei or his expedition are sparse and questionable. Many scholars have concluded that the tale was fabricated or exaggerated, possibly originating from sensationalist journalism. In fact, some suggest the stones were likely misidentified artifacts, ritual objects, or outright inventions of modern hoaxers. Nonetheless, the story has persisted, continuing to appear in books, documentaries, and online discussions about forbidden archaeology. What makes the Dropa stones so enduring is not the evidence itself, since there is very little, but the way the tale taps into deep human curiosities, the possibility of visitors from the stars, the allure of hidden discoveries in remote mountains, and the sense that history still conceals secrets, all combine to keep the legend alive. In many ways, the Dropa stones highlight how myths can become cemented into popular culture, even when their origins are dubious. Whether fraud, misinterpretation, or a real mystery waiting to be rediscovered, the Dropa stones remain a captivating part of modern folklore, embodying both the thirst for discovery and the cautionary lesson of how easily mystery can be manufactured. 50. The Battle of Los Angeles. In the early hours of February 25, 1942, just a few months after the attack on Pearl Harbor, the city of Los Angeles was thrust into chaos by what would later be called the Battle of Los Angeles. At around 2:00 a.m., air raid sirens wailed across the city as reports surfaced of unidentified objects flying in the night sky. Searchlights scanned the darkness, and soon anti-aircraft guns opened fire, filling the sky with tracer rounds and explosions. Residents, many still anxious about Japanese attacks on the West Coast, awoke to the terrifying sound of warfare erupting above their homes. For several hours, the city was gripped by panic. Over 1,400 shells were fired, and shrapnel rained down on neighborhoods, causing damage to buildings and cars. Several civilians were killed, some from accidents and heart attacks triggered by the chaos. Yet, despite the massive defensive barrage, no wreckage of enemy planes was ever found. By dawn, the skies were clear, and confusion reigned. What had the military been firing at? Initial explanations suggested enemy aircraft, possibly Japanese bombers or even balloons, but these claims were quickly dismissed as no evidence surfaced. Some officials argued it was a case of war nerves, a false alarm magnified by heightened tension and jittery defenses. However, Photographs published the next day, especially one showing searchlights converging on a glowing object in the sky, fueled alternative theories. For decades, many have speculated that what really happened was not a phantom air raid, but an encounter with unidentified flying objects. UFO enthusiasts point to the military's conflicting statements as suspicious. Why did trained spotters and gunners believe they were targeting actual aircraft if nothing was there? Could radar blips and visual sightings have been caused by something beyond conventional explanation? Theories range from secret military experiments to extraterrestrial visitors briefly appearing in wartime skies. Even some mainstream historians admit that the exact details remain unclear. The Battle of Los Angeles endures as one of the most famous unsolved mysteries of the Second World War. It reflects both the vulnerability of a nation under threat and the powerful human tendency to interpret the unknown through the lens of fear or wonder. Whether the incident was simply mass hysteria, a cover-up of experimental technology, or a genuine brush with something unearthly, it remains etched in history as a night when Los Angeles went to war with the sky itself. The unanswered questions surrounding the event continued to fascinate researchers and storytellers, ensuring that the Battle of Los Angeles remains an enduring enigma. 51. The Tungsten Sphere of Klerksdorp. The tungsten sphere of Klerksdorp is one of the most puzzling and debated objects ever discovered. Found in South Africa, these mysterious spheres have fascinated both scientists and alternative historians alike. The spheres were uncovered by miners in the Klerksdorp region, deep within rock formations that are estimated to be over 3 billion years old. The spheres themselves are small, metallic-looking objects, often with grooves etched around their circumference, as if they were deliberately crafted. Some are perfectly spherical, while others are slightly flattened, giving them an uncanny manufactured appearance. What makes them truly mysterious is the fact that no known civilization existed billions of years ago that could have possibly created them. Their discovery has fueled countless debates about whether they are a natural geological formation or evidence of a lost or even extraterrestrial technology. Scientists have proposed that these spheres are examples of concretions, natural mineral formations created over time through the crystallization of minerals. In this view, the grooves and smooth surfaces could have been shaped by natural processes such as erosion or layering of mineral deposits. Supporters of this explanation argue that there is no evidence of human or alien involvement, and that the spheres are simply rare but naturally occurring geological oddities. However, skeptics of the purely natural explanation point out that many of the spheres exhibit precision and symmetry that seems unlikely to occur randomly in nature. Their composition also adds to the puzzle. While many are made of materials such as hematite or pyrophyllite, some specimens reportedly contain alloys or metals like tungsten, which is not commonly found in such formations. Tungsten's high melting point and industrial uses have made its supposed presence within these spheres particularly intriguing. For decades, the spheres were displayed in museums and private collections, further adding to their aura of mystery. Some fringe theorists suggest that they could be remnants of an advanced ancient civilization that existed before recorded history, one capable of metalworking and sophisticated design. Others go even further, theorizing that they might be artifacts left behind by extraterrestrials who visited Earth long before humanity arose. These ideas, though lacking concrete evidence, continue to fuel public fascination, as they suggest a much older and more complex history of the planet than mainstream science accepts. Ultimately, the tungsten sphere of Klerksdorp embodies the tension between conventional scientific reasoning and the allure of the unexplained. While the geological explanation remains the most widely accepted, the spheres stand as a reminder that our world still holds objects that defy easy classification. Whether natural oddities or relics of something extraordinary, they continue to capture imaginations, reminding us of the many mysteries still hidden in Earth's deep past. 52. The Voyages of Polynesia. The story of the Polynesian voyages is one of the most remarkable achievements in human history, yet it also remains partly shrouded in mystery. Across the vast Pacific Ocean, an area covering more than 60 million square miles, Polynesian navigators managed to explore, settle, and connect distant islands long before the advent of modern technology. From Hawaii in the north to New Zealand in the south, and as far east as Easter Island, Polynesians created a cultural network spanning thousands of miles. The great question has always been, How did they accomplish this extraordinary feat, and how much knowledge did they truly possess about the ocean world around them? For centuries, European explorers were astonished to find thriving societies spread across remote islands, separated by thousands of miles of open ocean. These communities spoke related languages, shared myths and traditions, and possessed advanced seafaring knowledge. Unlike European sailors, who relied heavily on compasses and charts, Polynesian navigators used a sophisticated system of natural cues. They studied the stars, memorized their rising and setting points, and read subtle changes in ocean swells, bird flight patterns, and cloud formations to chart their courses. This knowledge was not written down, but passed orally from master navigators to apprentices, forming a living tradition of exploration. The mystery deepens when considering the sheer distances involved. Reaching Hawaii from Tahiti, for instance, required voyages of over 2,000 miles across open water with no land in sight. Skeptics once dismissed the possibility that ancient Polynesians could have intentionally navigated such distances, believing instead that settlement was accidental. However, modern experimental voyages, such as those of the reconstructed canoe Hokel A, have demonstrated that traditional navigation techniques are not only effective, but highly accurate. In fact, Polynesian voyagers may have mapped the Pacific in ways that rival modern methods, yet many questions remain. When did the first wave of exploration begin, and what motivated it? How did Polynesians maintain such long-distance networks of trade, culture, and kinship? And what happened to the voyaging tradition after European contact disrupted indigenous societies? Archaeological discoveries, linguistic studies, and DNA analysis continue to reveal new insights, suggesting that Polynesian navigation was deliberate, coordinated, and remarkably advanced. There are even suggestions that Polynesian voyagers reached the shores of the Americas before Columbus, exchanging goods and perhaps even knowledge with indigenous peoples there. The legacy of the Polynesian voyagers endures not only as a historical puzzle, but also as a living tradition. In recent decades, Polynesian communities have revived their ancient navigation techniques, sailing traditional canoes across the Pacific to honor their ancestors and reclaim their cultural heritage. Their achievements remind us of the ingenuity, resilience, and vision of human societies that dared to cross vast oceans with nothing but the stars and their inherited wisdom as guides. Whether seen as a solved triumph or a lingering mystery, the story of Polynesian voyagers stands as one of the greatest epics of exploration in human history. 53. The Mystery of Teotihuacan. Teotihuacan, often called the City of the Gods, stands as one of the most impressive archaeological sites in the world. Located about 30 miles northeast of modern-day Mexico City, this ancient metropolis flourished around the first few centuries AD, reaching its peak between 100 and 600 AD at its height. Teotihuacan may have supported a population of over 100,000 people, making it one of the largest cities in the world at the time. What makes this site particularly mysterious is that while the city is monumental in scale, with its sprawling avenues, pyramids, temples, and housing complexes, almost nothing is known about the identity of its original builders. The most iconic structures are the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon, immense stone monuments that dominate the landscape. The Avenue of the Dead, a central thoroughfare stretching for miles, connects major complexes and ceremonial sites. Murals and carvings suggest rich traditions of religion, astronomy, and cosmology. Yet the absence of written records or decipherable inscriptions leaves historians in the dark. Unlike the Maya or the Aztecs, whose writings provide insight into their beliefs and daily lives, Teotihuacan's culture remains almost entirely silent. Archaeological evidence reveals that the city was highly planned. With residential areas, workshops, and even irrigation systems, it seems to have been a multicultural hub, with quarters for different ethnic groups, including Zapotecs, Maya, and others. This suggests it was a major trade and cultural center, drawing people from across Mesoamerica. However, around the 7th century, Teotihuacan experienced a dramatic decline. Parts of the city show evidence of deliberate burning and destruction, while other areas were simply abandoned. Whether this collapse was due to internal revolt, environmental stresses, or external invasions remains one of history's unanswered questions. Another layer of intrigue comes from recent discoveries beneath the pyramids. Archaeologists have found hidden tunnels and chambers filled with offerings, statues, and materials such as liquid mercury, which may have symbolized a river of the underworld. These discoveries deepen the sense that Teotihuacan was not just a political capital but a spiritual and ceremonial heartland, where rulers and priests sought to align the city with cosmic forces. Later cultures, especially the Aztecs, were awed by Teotihuacan's ruins. They named it the place where gods were born and wove it into their myths of creation. Yet even the Aztecs, who encountered the city centuries after its abandonment, did not know who built it. This gap in historical memory makes Teotihuacan a rare enigma, a civilization that rose to immense heights, influenced all of Mesoamerica, and then disappeared almost without a trace. Today, Teotihuacan remains a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a place of wonder for visitors and scholars alike. The sheer scale of its architecture, the mystery of its origins, and the questions about its fall ensure that it remains one of the world's greatest unsolved historical puzzles. In Teotihuacan we find not only stone monuments, but also silence and absence of voice that leaves the imagination open to endless possibilities. 54. The 1908 Tunguska explosion. On the morning of June 30, 1908, a massive explosion shook the skies above the remote Tunguska region of Siberia. The blast flattened more than 80 million trees across an area of about 800 square miles, leaving a radial pattern of devastation that stunned investigators. Witnesses living hundreds of miles away reported a fiery object streaking through the sky, followed by an immense shockwave that shattered windows, knocked people off their feet, and lit up the horizon. Yet, despite the magnitude of the event, no impact crater was ever found, leading to one of the greatest scientific mysteries of the 20th century. The most widely accepted explanation is that a comet or meteoroid exploded in the atmosphere in what is called an airburst, traveling at tens of thousands of miles per hour. The object would have superheated the air around it and disintegrated before hitting the ground, releasing energy equivalent to at least 10 to 15 megatons of TNT. This theory explains the lack of a crater while accounting for the enormous blast zone. However, the absence of any large fragments or chemical traces has fueled alternative theories. Some researchers have suggested that the object could have been composed of mostly ice, consistent with a comet, which would have vaporized upon atmospheric entry, leaving minimal debris. Others propose more exotic explanations, ranging from natural gas explosions to mini black holes or even alien spacecraft. Though these lack empirical support, the mysterious circumstances of the event, coupled with its remote location, have allowed such speculations to flourish. Expeditions to the site did not begin until nearly 2 decades later, as political turmoil and the remoteness of the Siberian taiga delayed investigation. When scientists finally arrived in the late 1920s, they were astonished at the scale of the flattened forest. The trees all pointed outward from a central location, exactly as would be expected from a massive blast wave. Yet still, no fragments of a meteorite were recovered. Soil and tree samples have revealed only faint anomalies, such as traces of rare minerals, but nothing definitive. Modern research using satellite imagery and computer modeling supports the airburst hypothesis, suggesting the object may have been about 150 to 200 feet wide. Simulations show that such an explosion could release enough energy to cause the observed devastation, without leaving behind a crater. Nevertheless, the exact composition of the object and the precise chain of events remain unknown. The Tunguska event serves as a sobering reminder of the Earth's vulnerability to cosmic impacts. If such an explosion had occurred over a populated area, the devastation would have been catastrophic. Fortunately, Tunguska was sparsely inhabited, and there were no confirmed human casualties. Today, scientists continue to study the event, using it as a case study in planetary defense and the risks posed by near-Earth objects. Despite more than a century of research, the Tunguska explosion retains an air of mystery. It was the largest impact event in recorded history, yet it left behind no definitive evidence of its cause. For this reason, it stands as both a scientific puzzle and a symbol of nature's immense and unpredictable power. 55. The Shugborough inscription. On the grounds of Shugborough Hall, an 18th century estate in Staffordshire, England, lies one of the most puzzling inscriptions in European history. Carved into the base of a stone monument, known as the Shepherdess Monument, are the letters OUOSVAV, framed between the letters D and M. This seemingly random string of characters has baffled scholars, codebreakers, and mystery enthusiasts for centuries. Despite countless attempts, no universally accepted interpretation has been discovered, making the Shugborough inscription one of history's most enduring enigmas. The Shepherd S monument itself was commissioned by Thomas Anson around 1748 and was inspired by a painting, The Shepherds of Arcadia, by Nicholas Poussin. The artwork depicts shepherds gathered around a tomb with the inscription, Et in Arcadia ego, often translated as Even in Arcadia, there am I, a reference to mortality. Beneath this adaptation lies the cryptic sequence of letters. What they mean, and why they were included, remains unknown. Their placement feels deliberate, as though meant to lead future generations toward some profound truth or hidden treasure. Over the years, theories have flourished. Some suggest it is a code pointing to hidden treasure, perhaps even the Holy Grail, as Shugborough has long been linked to Grail legends and esoteric traditions. Others believe it may conceal a personal message, a memorial code for a loved one, or even a Masonic cipher. During World War II, the puzzle caught the attention of Allied codebreakers, including experts at Bletchley Park, who reportedly could not crack it, despite their success against the Enigma machine. Modern linguists, historians, and cryptologists have offered interpretations ranging from Latin acronyms to elaborate word puzzles, but none have been conclusively proven. Part of the inscription's allure is its placement within the larger landscape of Shugborough. The estate is filled with classical, mythological, and allegorical references, making it a place designed to provoke thought and mystery. Some argue the letters could have been intended as a playful intellectual challenge for guests of the estate, a fashionable pastime in the 18th century, where puzzles and riddles were used to showcase wit and sophistication. Yet the possibility of a deeper meaning cannot be dismissed. Could Thomas Anson and his circle of Enlightenment thinkers have encoded a secret intended for posterity? Today, the inscription remains unsolved, drawing thousands of visitors each year who stand before the Shepherd S monument and attempt their own amateur sleuths. Professional historians and even casual tourists are compelled to try their hand at solving it, adding layer upon layer of interpretation to its history. Its mystery continues to spark imagination because it bridges art, history, symbolism, and human curiosity in one compact riddle. Whether it is a coded message left by secret societies, a tribute to lost love, or merely a clever puzzle meant to intrigue, the Shugborough inscription endures as a monument not only of stone but of humanity's relentless drive to uncover hidden meaning. 56. The ancient city of Mohenjo-daro. Deep in the Indus Valley of present-day Pakistan lies the ruins of Mohenjo-daro, one of the great cities of the ancient Indus Valley civilization. Dating back to around 2500 BCE, this city was once a bustling hub of culture, trade, and innovation. Yet today its history remains shrouded in mystery. Despite decades of excavation, scholars still struggle to understand who its people were, what language they spoke, and why the city and the civilization itself ultimately vanished. Mohenjo-daro was remarkable for its advanced urban planning. Streets were laid out in a grid pattern, buildings were constructed with standardized baked bricks, and an elaborate drainage and sewage system ran beneath the city far ahead of many other contemporary civilizations. There were granaries, wells, and public baths, the most famous being the Great Bath, a large tank that may have held ritual or religious significance. The level of sophistication suggests a highly organized society with strong civic governance. Even ordinary houses had private bathing areas connected to drains, indicating an unusual concern for hygiene and public health. Yet, much about the people remains unknown. Unlike Egypt or Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley left no deciphered written records. Hundreds of seals engraved with mysterious symbols and images of animals have been found, but their meaning continues to elude modern scholars. Without texts to explain their religion, politics, or daily life, researchers rely on archaeological evidence and comparison with neighboring cultures. The seals hint at a structured system of communication and possibly trade networks, but the absence of translations makes this one of the world's most enduring linguistic puzzles. The decline of Mohenjo-daro adds another layer of mystery. Around 1900 BCE, the city was abandoned. Theories about its fall include climate change that may have dried up rivers, shifts in river courses that disrupted agriculture, or possibly an invasion by Indo-Aryan tribes. More speculative theories propose sudden natural disasters such as earthquakes or floods. Some fringe claims even suggest evidence of ancient atomic-like destruction, pointing to traces of vitrified stone and unusual skeletal remains. Though mainstream archaeology does not support these interpretations, still, the strangeness of its sudden abandonment fuels debate to this day. Despite its mysteries, Mohenjo-Daro has left an indelible mark on human history. It demonstrates that highly advanced urban societies existed long before many traditionally recognized cradles of civilization. Its influence likely extended into later South Asian culture, shaping patterns of settlement, technology, and social organization. The people of Mohenjo-Daro, though largely silent in history, achieved architectural and engineering feats that speak of remarkable foresight and creativity. Today, Mohenjo-Daro is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, but it faces threats from erosion, flooding, and human encroachment. Preservation efforts are ongoing, though the fragile ruins remain vulnerable to environmental change and neglect. As archaeologists continue their work, Mohenjo-Daro stands as both a monument to human ingenuity and a reminder of how fragile civilizations can be. Its unanswered questions keep the site alive in public imagination, a silent city that still whispers secrets across 4,000 years of history, waiting for its true story to one day be revealed. 57. The Kensington Runestone in 1898. A Swedish-American farmer named Olof Åman unearthed a peculiar stone slab while clearing land near Kensington, Minnesota. This slab, now famously known as the Kensington Runestone, bore an inscription carved in runic characters that appeared to describe a Norse expedition to the heart of North America in the 14th century. From the moment of its discovery, the stone ignited fierce debate and remains one of the most controversial artifacts in American history. The inscription claims to be a record left by a group of Scandinavian explorers in 1362. According to the translation, 8 Gagdalanders and 22 Norwegians had traveled inland from Vinland, the legendary Norse settlement described in Icelandic sagas. The inscription also makes mention of 10 men killed by local inhabitants and a party waiting by the sea. If authentic, the stone would be evidence of Norse exploration reaching deep into the American Midwest, centuries before Columbus ever set sail. This single artifact would drastically rewrite our understanding of exploration in pre-Columbian America. From the very beginning, skepticism surrounded the artifact. Linguists and runologists pointed out that the runes included symbols not in use during the 14th century but known in the 19th century, leading many to suspect a hoax. Critics argued that Olof Åman, himself a Scandinavian immigrant familiar with runes, may have carved the inscription either as a prank, as a piece of folklore preserved in his community, or as an attempt to attract attention. However, others believe the level of linguistic nuance and historical reference within the inscription makes it unlikely to be a simple forgery. Some analyses even suggest that the text shows signs of dialects and phrasing consistent with 14th century Norse, raising questions about whether Åman could have fabricated such details. Supporters of the stone's authenticity argue that it could represent a genuine cultural memory passed down orally and preserved in regional runic traditions. Oral histories in Scandinavian communities often carried surprising accuracy over centuries, and it is possible that this was an artifact connected to that tradition. Some also point to other controversial evidence of pre-Columbian European presence in North America, such as the Newport Tower in Rhode Island, supposed Norse relics found in Canada and New England, and even Native American oral traditions that speak of strangers arriving from across the sea. Together, these suggest that the runestone may not be an isolated curiosity, but part of a larger and largely undocumented history. The debate has drawn in not only archaeologists and linguists, but also enthusiasts of alternative history. For some, the Kensington Runestone represents proof of forgotten exploration, while for others it is a reminder of how myths, migration stories, and cultural pride can shape artifacts. The runestone is now displayed at a museum in Alexandria, Minnesota, where it continues to attract both believers and skeptics. Academic consensus still leans toward the stone being a 19th century forgery, yet no definitive proof exists either way. Its mystery endures because it sits at the intersection of national identity, migration history, and the desire to uncover forgotten chapters of the past. Whether authentic or not, The Kensington runestone remains one of the most thought-provoking discoveries in American history. For many, it is less about whether the inscription is genuine and more about what it represents. The possibility that history is far richer and more complex than the records we currently possess. It speaks to humanity's deep fascination with exploration, the power of storytelling, and the allure of rewriting the past. The stone continues to spark imagination, serving as a reminder that the line between history and legend is often thinner than we think. 58. The lintels of Puma Punku High in the Bolivian Andes lies one of the most extraordinary and enigmatic archaeological sites in the world. Puma Punku, part of the larger Tiwanaku complex. Puma Punku is famed for its massive stone blocks, precision-cut architectural elements, and mysterious origins. Among its most remarkable features are the intricately carved lintels and H-shaped stones that defy conventional explanations of ancient stoneworking technology. These monolithic blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, suggest an engineering achievement far beyond what mainstream archaeology attributes to the Tiwanaku culture. The lintels of Puma Punku are particularly striking for their exactitude. Stones were carved with straight edges, drilled holes, and interlocking joints so precise that a modern razor blade can scarcely fit between them. The H-shaped blocks, thought to be part of a modular construction system, indicate that the builders understood concepts of prefabrication and standardization. Such methods are considered advanced even by today's architectural standards. The sheer size of the stones also raises questions of transportation, as they were quarried miles away and moved across challenging terrain without wheels or beasts of burden. Archaeologists attribute Puma Punku to the Tiwanaku civilization, which thrived in the region between 500 and 1000 CE. However, some argue that the precision and scale of the construction indicate knowledge or technology that the Tiwanaku should not have possessed. Alternative theories range from the involvement of a lost advanced culture to assistance from extraterrestrial visitors. While these ideas remain speculative, they underscore just how baffling the site truly is. Even mainstream scholars admit that many aspects of Puma Punku remain unsolved, particularly regarding how such massive stones could be cut and set into place with primitive tools. Mainstream researchers propose that the precision could be explained through the patient use of stone tools, copper chisels, sand abrasion, and a large labor force. Experimental archaeology has shown that some techniques may reproduce aspects of the precision seen at Puma Punku, though on a much smaller scale. Yet even with these methods, the accuracy of the cuts and the uniformity of the blocks seem astonishing. The purpose of Puma Punku remains equally unclear. Some believe it was a ceremonial or religious site, aligned with astronomical events, while others suggest it served as a political or cultural center for the Tiwanaku civilization. What makes the lintels so enigmatic is not only their craftsmanship, but also their durability. After centuries of earthquakes, weathering, and human interference, they still display remarkable symmetry and smoothness. This longevity adds weight to the idea that Puma Punku was built with an understanding of materials and engineering ahead of its time. The design of the lintels may have also had symbolic or spiritual significance, representing portals, thresholds, or connections to the divine. For the Tiwanaku people and their descendants, such architecture may have carried deep cosmological meaning. Today, Puma Punku stands as both a marvel and a mystery. For the local Aymara people, it carries spiritual significance, while for historians and alternative theorists, it is a puzzle that challenges assumptions about ancient knowledge. Tourists and researchers alike are drawn to the site, marveling at the scale and precision of the stones. The lintels in particular serve as enduring evidence that humanity's past may hold secrets we are only beginning to uncover. Whether products of extraordinary human ingenuity or something even more mysterious, the stones of Puma Punku continue to inspire awe and wonder, leaving us to question just how much of history remains untold. Their mystery ensures that Puma Punku will remain one of the world's most fascinating enigmas for generations to come. 59. The Devil's Kettle Waterfall in the forests of northern Minnesota. Nestled within Judge C.R. Magny State Park, lies a natural phenomenon that has puzzled scientists, hikers, and locals for decades. The Devil's Kettle Waterfall. This waterfall is not only beautiful, but it is also one of the most mysterious hydrological features in the world. The Brule River, flowing gracefully through the park, suddenly encounters a large rock outcrop. Here, the water splits into two distinct streams. One side of the river plunges down a typical waterfall and continues along its course. The other side, however, vanishes into a massive hole in the rock known as the Devil's Kettle and seemingly disappears without a trace. For many years, visitors and scientists alike have tried to determine where the water that enters the Devil's Kettle actually goes. Experiments have been conducted, from pouring dyes into the hole to dropping ping-pong balls, but the results were inconclusive. The dye never appeared downstream, and the balls were never seen again. This baffling outcome gave rise to numerous theories, ranging from underground rivers and lava tubes to fantastical notions of bottomless pits and portals to other worlds. Some even speculated that the water was being swallowed into vast subterranean caverns, or that it might resurface miles away in hidden springs unknown to modern mapping. In 2016, hydrologists conducted more detailed studies to unravel the mystery. They measured water flow above the falls and compared it to flow rates below. Surprisingly, the measurements revealed that the volumes matched, suggesting that the water disappearing into the kettle eventually rejoins the river downstream. Although this appears to solve the mystery, exactly how the water re-emerges remains unclear. The geology of the region does not suggest massive underground tunnels, and the mechanics of the hidden flow path are still debated. Some researchers argue that the water likely filters through countless fissures in the bedrock before reconnecting with the river, creating a natural labyrinth beneath the surface that has yet to be fully understood. Part of the allure of the Devil's Kettle lies not just in the scientific puzzle, but in the folklore surrounding it. Local legends claim that objects thrown into the hole are lost forever, swallowed by the earth. Stories of hunters tossing old televisions or refrigerators into the kettle, never to see them again, have added to the mystery. Over time, these tales evolved, and many began to believe that the kettle was a gateway between worlds, a place where the natural and supernatural overlap. The name Devil's Kettle itself reflects the eerie, almost supernatural aura of the site, as though the earth itself were boiling away the river's waters. Today, the Devil's Kettle remains a popular hiking destination, drawing visitors who marvel at the waterfall's beauty and its enduring enigma. Trails leading to the site are often filled with curious travelers, eager to witness this natural oddity. Scientists may be closer to an explanation, but the phenomenon continues to spark imagination, serving as a reminder that even in the modern world, nature still holds secrets we do not fully understand. Whether regarded as a geological curiosity, a hydrological puzzle, or a place of local legend, the Devil's Kettle keeps its mystique alive, whispering to us that not every question has a neat answer. 60. The Jersey Devil Legend. Among the pine forests of southern New Jersey lies one of America's most enduring and chilling legends, the tale of the Jersey Devil. For over 250 years, locals and travelers alike have reported terrifying encounters with a winged creature said to haunt the Pine Barrens. Descriptions of the monster vary, but most accounts describe it as a kangaroo-like beast with leathery bat wings, a horse-like head, cloven hooves, and a blood-curdling scream that echoes through the night. This bizarre creature is said to prey upon livestock, frighten communities, and vanish just as quickly as it appears. The legend traces back to the early 1700s, when a woman known as Mother Leeds allegedly cursed her 13th child. According to the tale, when the baby was born, it transformed into a grotesque creature, sprouted wings, and flew into the Pine Barrens, where it has remained ever since. This origin story combines folklore, superstition, and the fear of the wilderness, embedding the creature firmly into local culture. Over the centuries, the story of the Jersey Devil grew, reinforced by countless alleged sightings and terrifying encounters. During the 19th and 20th centuries, sightings surged. Farmers reported mutilated livestock. Travelers swore they heard its unearthly cries, and in 1909, newspapers across New Jersey and Pennsylvania were filled with accounts of encounters. Police officers, citizens, and even public officials claimed to have seen the beast. Panic spread so widely that schools closed and factories shut down, cementing the creature's reputation as more than just a myth whispered around campfires. Skeptics, of course, offer rational explanations. They argued that many sightings could be misidentified: birds, owls, or even sandhill cranes, whose wingspans and eerie calls might explain the reports. Others suggest that the legend was fueled by political rivalries. as the Leeds family was unpopular in colonial times and may have been vilified through folklore. Nonetheless, the sheer number of stories and the consistency of the descriptions keep the legend alive. The Jersey Devil is more than a cryptid. It is a cultural icon. It embodies the mystery and fear of the unknown, passed down through generations of Pine Barrens residents. It has inspired books, television shows, films, and even the name of New Jersey's hockey team, the New Jersey Devils. Whether it is a supernatural being, a misunderstood animal, or a creation of folklore, the Jersey Devil endures as a reminder of how legends take root and flourish. Even today, hikers in the Pine Barrens sometimes report strange noises, shadows in the trees, or feelings of being watched. While skeptics remain unconvinced, believers argue that the absence of definitive proof only adds to the mystery. The Jersey Devil may never be proven real, but its story continues to captivate imaginations, blurring the line between myth and reality. Like all great legends, it persists not because of evidence, but because of its power to inspire wonder, fear, and endless storytelling.